Currently, the state decides from whom and how we get our electricity. The North Carolina Utility Commissioners are supposed to represent the people of North Carolina. However, we did not elect them, nor do we get to vote on any decisions that they make. Who decides? The rate hike decisions will be made behind closed doors in discussion with Duke, with the 7 utility commissioners in Raleigh. Is this democratic? The current 7 utility commissioners were appointed by Governor McCrory, who worked for Duke for 28 years. Do you think we're going to have an unbiased hearing? The city of Asheville, along with many others, all have passed resolutions to transition to 100% renewable energy by 2050. This proposed rate hike will not make that possible. Who decides?
We decide!
The Utilities Commissioners are meant to be the voice of the people. Are you people?
Yes!
Are you sure?
Yes!
We have an obligation as well to speak for the jellyfish, to speak for the trees, for the water, for the ducks that flap and have beautiful beaks. We have an obligation to the little ones and to the turtles, to those not yet born, to those who struggled and battled before us. We have an obligation. They are our voice, supposedly. So, who decides?
We decide!
This public hearing, this is a chance for us to speak, to say, you are our voice. What do we want you to say? Water is life. Water is sacred. Honor native sovereignty. So many things. They do not include build a pipeline through these majestic, beautiful forests, through our beloved mountains. They do not say, we'll pay to clean up your mistake. They do not say all sorts of things that are included. This is the list of things, some of the things included in this price rate hike. We have the Mayo Coal Plant wastewater treatment system. I'm going to tell you how much money that is as soon as the wind blows a little less. So that wastewater treatment system, your friend over there, guess how much money for your friend over there? Can you guess? Would you handle all
Oh, it's one of those. How much is it? Yeah, right.
$141 million to clean up the wastewater treatment system for the Mayo Coal Plant. Here we have these new fracked gas power plants. This is the big one, y'all. How much is that?
184.
Let's try the $416 million of our money. Next we have the purchasing renewables energy from third parties. That one's nice. Potentially. How much do we think we're going to do for that in this new rate hike? Try again. 30 million per year. Compared to how much was that for those new fracked gas power plants? 416. Next we have the coal ash cleanup. Their problem, their mistake, and now supposedly we're going to clean up for something that they thought they were going to do.
Irresponsible!
So how much do you think that one is, friends? What's available? What's available? $195 million per year. Let's jump over here to the abandoned nuclear construction investment. I didn't know that was a thing. How many of you didn't know that was a thing?
I didn't know that was
I didn't know that was a thing either. Guess how much we're going to pay for it? Any ideas?
$9 million.
$9 million per year.
Whoa!
So that's pretty cool. You know, when I bought my used truck, no one paid me when it broke down. That would have been cool. That's not usually how projects work, though, eh? Next we have hurricane damage repair. That's a good one, too. I would give that a lot of money. How much do you think we're going to do in this rate hike? What's available?
$184.
You are correct. And then we have our solar and our wind over here. Where is their big money allotment?
Zero.
There's a tiny bit. There's solar projects for 184 million. So that's a little. How about all y'all over there? Hurricane damage, you can come hang out with us on this side. That's a good one. Purchasing renewable energies, you can go in the middle, maybe between the abandoned nuclear and the 184. All right, and then abandoned nuclear, you move on over there. All right, anyone want to do some math on their smartphone? How much would that be? And how much would that be? Kind of out of balance in my opinion, if we're going for that 100% renewable. So, any of you fine, fabulous humans out there want to redo the budget, give something else visual, come on up here and remove these numbers, put them where you want, and anything you don't want, put it on the floor. So one volunteer, come on up. What do we want to get rid of? What else do we want to get rid of or keep? Anything we want to give $0 to? We got a 0 over there. How's this look, my darling, beloved North Carolina Utilities Commissioners? How's that look? They make it hard. They make you come and sign up at 6, but you don't get to talk until 7. It's on a weekday. They make it hard for you to stand up and say, this is not for me. This is not how I want this to look. This is not where my money goes. If this whole big, huge price hike was doing this and was backing people for programs for people who are struggling financially, our low-income friends, that would be a very different request. That's something I could get behind. But all these ones here on the floor, that's our money. Another cool thing, a couple friends here could probably give me a different number, but the way that the people that are the largest consumers, their rate hike is less than ours. So that means our low-income brothers and sisters and us will be paying more than people that have huge power plants or that have huge big complexes or big mall development, any industrial stuff. There, I can't remember the percentage. Any of y'all out there remember it, my people? Where are you? It's like, oh, I can see any of you. Anyway, it's a lot less. It makes me grumpy. Anyone else want to play with this? Anything else? Because this is our money. What would we do? They're no smarter than us.
No way. Not subsidizing corporate bosses.
Exactly.
My name is Danielle Peoples. I am a spokesperson with Duke Energy.
Okay. And so, what is Duke Energy asking for now?
So we have filed a request to increase customers' rates with our Duke Energy Progress service territory. And this, of course, is not something that we take lightly, asking to increase our customers' rates. Over 50% of this rate increase is related to generating cleaner energy So there's 4 new solar facilities, large-scale solar facilities that are included in this rate request. There's also new natural gas plants near Wilmington, and then also here in the Asheville area, some of the startup construction costs of the new Asheville combined cycle natural gas plant. And then other things that are included are hurricane restoration work, and then projects to increase technology capabilities for our customers, some of our customer technology options.
So the nuclear plant that was never completed down in Gaffney, is that included in this as well?
That is not. So that is in the Duke Energy Carolinas service territory. Duke Energy Progress territory is Asheville area, Raleigh, and then the eastern part of the state.
So this is
those operate, exactly, those operate as separate utilities.
What's the source of the natural gas that's going to be used for the natural gas plants that Duke is planning to build?
Yeah, so Duke Energy, of course, is not a supplier of natural gas. We are a buyer of natural gas. So we have a plant in Wilmington, some plants out east, and then the plant here in Asheville. We do not construct pipelines ourselves. We partner sometimes with those types of projects, but we operate the power plants themselves. And so the costs that are included in this rate request are related to the construction of those plants.
Didn't Duke Energy merge with Piedmont Natural Gas 2 years ago?
Yes, we did, and we continue to operate as 2 separate utilities underneath the same parent company.
But Duke Energy actually then does own a supply line.
Yes, yeah, but that's separate from Duke Energy Progress. There's lots of offshoots of the bigger Duke Energy parent company.
Right. Nonetheless, you are the suppliers of natural gas, I mean, ultimately. And what's the source of that natural gas?
That is not something that I have information on right now.
Well, there's a pipeline that's being built, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline in eastern North Carolina that goes from West Virginia and down through Virginia and into North Carolina, where I understand there's a lot of opposition to the construction. Is that ultimately the source of the gas that will provide gas for
that would be important for the eastern part of the state and those plants over there. So as we think about the plant that I was mentioning in the Wilmington area, that would be an important pipeline for those plants and the economy over in that eastern part of the state.
And so where does it come from in the western part of the state?
You know, I don't know exactly the pipeline distribution system over here.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to?
Well, I just say, you know, this part of the process, it's important to hear from customers and for the commission to be able to take comments and feedback as part of their process as the Utilities Commission. So our role tonight is really to be here and listen and answer questions off to the side as we can.
What percentage of future energy will be provided by solar and wind energy? Or other renewable energy resources?
Well, you know, we are moving towards cleaner sources of energy. In this particular rate request, there are 4 large-scale solar projects that have been constructed already that we are asking to recover costs on. So I think we'll see more of that into the future. There's been some neat announcements here in Asheville. Part of the big Western Carolinas Modernization Project is about adding solar at the Asheville plant location. We've recently announced a large-scale battery project out there as well. So I think we'll see a lot more of that into the future, and it's important.
But you don't have any idea like what the percentages are related relative to coal, natural gas, and nuclear power?
Yeah, so each year we file an integrated resource plan that looks years out into the future, so I'd be happy to provide that information to you.
But you don't happen to know that also?
Not right now, yeah.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Okay, yeah, you're very welcome.
Hi, I'm Paula Williams. I'm a resident here in Asheville. I'm a widower, and I took a $1,000 pay cut when my spouse died. I'm still paying the same utilities, but a pay cut. Now, we have a lot of senior citizens dealing with the same issues I'm dealing with. Some are disabled, some are having challenges just buying their medication. We cannot afford for Duke to go up on our utility. Now, we have good commissioners here, And we hope that they will be concerned about the people that voted them into office. And I want everybody out there to fill out the petitions and send it to Duke or contact the AARP Association, and we will make sure the information, your petition will get sent to Duke to let them know. Pay your own bill like you're making us pay ours. You know what challenges you're dealing with, but we shouldn't have to pay that. That's all I got to say about that.
As a senior citizen and a widower, I don't feel like that we should have to pay extra for our utilities to take care of the dirty energy that Duke Power is doing.
This is a court proceeding, county's order, and therefore order and quorum are required. Testimony we take from witnesses. Others in this court must remain silent and may not interfere with the proceedings. The chairman will refer to the rules and regulations to be followed. Pay attention to the instructions here today.
Good evening. Let's come to order. My name is Edward S. Finley, Chairman of the Commission, and with me tonight are Commissioners Brian E. Beatty, Roland D. Brown Bland, Jerry C. Duncan, James G. Patterson, Lyons Gray, and Daniel G. Flatbell. I now call for hearing docket number E2-1142, which is the application of Duke Energy Progress for adjustment of rates and charges applicable to electric utility service in North Carolina. On June 1, 2017, Duke Energy Progress filed an application to adjust retail rates and request for an accounting order along with supporting direct testimony of 15 witnesses. By its application, Duke Energy Progress requests authority to increase its retail rates and charges to produce additional overall annual North Carolina retail revenues of approximately $477.5 million, an increase of approximately 14.9% over current revenues. In support of the requested increase, Duke Energy Progress states that recent work to modernize the electric system, generate cleaner power, responsibly manage and close coal ash basins, respond to major storms like Hurricane Matthew, and continually improve service to its customers, have made a request for this increase necessary. As a part of its application, Duke Energy Progress requests a number of accounting orders for approval to establish regulatory assets and liabilities. On June 20, 2017, the Commission issued its order establishing a general rate case and suspending rates. On June 22, 2017, the Commission issued its order scheduling investigation and hearings, establishing intervention and testimony due dates, and discovery guidelines, and requiring public notice. Several hearings have been scheduled at locations around the state for these purposes of receiving testimony from public witnesses addressing the proposed rate adjustment. And that is the purpose of this hearing this evening pursuant to the order revising procedural schedule and requiring public notice issued July 12, 2017. An evidentiary hearing, therefore, has been scheduled in Raleigh to begin November 20, 2017 to hear the expert witnesses of the parties. On July 10, 2017, the Commission issued an order consolidating document number E2-1131, Duke Energy Progress's request for incremental storm damage expenses, and document number E2-1103, Duke Energy Progress's request to defer environmental compliance costs into this rate case application document. On August 29, 2017, the Commission issued an order further consolidating the present rate case document to document number E2-1153, Duke Energy Progress's request to implement a job retention rider. On September 15, 2017, Duke Energy Progress filed a supplemental direct testimony of one of its witnesses. On September 22, 2017, the public staff filed cross notice of deposition regarding questions the public staff would ask opponents identified by the Attorney General's office. On September 22, 2017, the Kroger Company filed a direct testimony of one of its witnesses. Intervention of parties has been filed and granted for Carolina Utility Customers Association, the North Carolina Waste Awareness and Reduction Network, Carolina Industrial Group for Fair Utility Rates, the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association, the Public Works Commission of the City of Fayetteville, the Commercial Group, the North Carolina Electric Membership Corporation, the Environmental Defense Fund, the Kroger Company, Table Electric Membership Corporation, the Sierra Club, the United States Department of Defense, the Rate-Paying Neighbors, North Carolina Farm Bureau Federation, and the North Carolina Justice Center, the North Carolina Housing Coalition, the Natural Resource Defense Fund Council, and the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. There are a few other pending applications to intervene that have not been acted upon yet. There have been numerous statements of position filed by individuals that are in the official file of this docket. And this brings us up to the hearing before us tonight. I remind all the commissioners there are duties of conflicts of interest in whether any member has a known conflict of interest regarding the matters coming before the commission this evening. There will be no conflict, so we will proceed, and I will call upon the parties to announce their appearances, beginning with the applicant company.
Good evening, Chairman, President, Commissioners. My name is Kendrick Ventress, and I'm appearing on behalf of Duke Energy Progress tonight.
David Drews with the public staff representing the using and consuming public.
Are there any preliminary matters that we need to address before we start?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Duke Energy would like to make an opening statement.
Anyone else? No other seconds.
Call Mr. Walls.
Mr. Booth. Name, please.
I'm sorry, Jason Walls.
Mr. Walls. Come around here, Mr. Walls. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Walls is going to make an opening statement on behalf of Duke Energy. This is not evidence in the case. This is a statement that the company would like to make. It's preliminary to this hearing. Walls, go ahead. Tell us who you are and what's your position.
Good evening, Chairman Finley and Commissioners. My name is Jason Walls, and I am the District Manager here in the Asheville area. We certainly appreciate the Commissioners and our customers being here this evening. We know there are a lot of people who are waiting to speak, but I wanted to let the audience know that we have a team of representatives from the company here tonight to listen to what our customers have to say. In addition, if any customers have service issues or questions about our operations, energy efficiency programs, or other topics, we will be happy to try and address those with you, or we'll take down your contact information and follow up with your questions or concerns as quickly as possible following the meeting. Thank you, Chairman Finley.
Yes, just a brief moment on the protocol here. The public staff is a state agency that's set up to represent consumers in utility rate cases and other utility proceedings. Tonight, we will be just calling up names in the order they signed up. You can come up here, be sworn in, make a statement to the commission. If you have a document you want to provide as an exhibit, we'll accept that and submit it to the commission as well. Over the coming weeks, the public staff is doing an investigation and audit of Duke Energy's rate request, and we'll be filing recommendations with the commission later in October. Up until then, we haven't settled on what our position is. However, the public staff typically recommends they roll them out when the company requests. There'll be some issues where we agree with them, some where we disagree, and those disagreements will be submitted to the commission in an evidentiary hearing in Raleigh for decision by the commission. And thank you. In a moment, we'll call people up.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your coming out tonight to voice your views on this important matter. We welcome your testimony, and we are glad you are here. There are a few ground rules that we'll have to establish and have to follow. There are a lot of people who have signed up with the public staff, and we want all of them to be heard to the extent we are able to hear them. In conducting this hearing, the commission functions as a court. We do this pursuant to statute. We are in a courtroom for that very purpose. We must take sworn testimony pursuant to state statutes. We operate pursuant to the rules of procedure and evidence, and we want to conduct this hearing in a very orderly manner. So I request that you voluntarily agree and abide by these rules, and trust that you will do so. If not, we have remedies available to us, like striking testimony, removing those who are uncooperative, civil contempt, and other more severe remedies that I feel certain we won't have to resort to. In order to facilitate a full and fair opportunity for all speakers to communicate, the Commission has guidelines for public hearings, and I'll go over those right now. Witnesses must register with the public staff and verify that they are non-party witnesses. They will be called in the order in which they are listed on the roster. In order to allow each person an equal time, there will be a limit of, we will begin with a limit of 5 minutes. Now we've got as many as 40-some people who have signed up. And this is the third public hearing we've had like this. There are 2 more that we can have across the state. And typically we begin to give the same things over and over and over again. What that means is if everybody repeats the same thing, that the ones at the end of the list have to wait late into the evening to be heard. And so if what you have said has been said, well, by someone else in front of you, you can say, I agree with that person, and if you have something additional to add, please do so. I must have the witnesses swear or affirm prior to the witness providing the testimony in order to have the testimony received in evidence. Only one witness may testify at a time. The witnesses shall refrain from offering opinions on matters not specified in the notice appearing for this document. This is a rate case document. Also, witnesses should address their testimony to the commission, not to the members of the audience, not to the public staff, and not to the company. In order of oral testimony, if you have something written that you would like to have submitted to the record, we'll allow you to do that as long as you verify that it was your position. The witnesses will be subject to cross-examination by the company, the public staff, or by the commissioners as well. We'll try to limit that so we can get through this proceeding in an orderly manner. Persons who are not customers of the applicant will be called, persons who are customers of the applicant, Progress Energy, will be called to testify first. Other persons called to testify will be called in the order in which they appear on the witness sheet. However, we may decide for some reason to call witness out of order for some reason. Testimony is being recorded by a court reporter, therefore to ensure accuracy of the record, I may limit unconventional modes of testimony. For example, please, no singing, no audience participation. The commission's goal is to receive testimony that will help the commission make decisions in matters, so please do not disturb the hearing by clapping, booing, hissing, or other such behavior. In addition, please refrain from personal criticisms or attacks on participants, including applicants, attorneys, and representatives of the commission and the public staff. To ensure that all witnesses are heard and their testimony is properly transcribed by the court reporter, the commission will maintain the hearing room decorum. We have a right to instruct security to remove members of the audience who are attempting to participate out of order or in any verbal or visual manner not condoned. In addition, members of the audience shall refrain from bringing signs or other placards into the hearing room. This is not a proceeding in which the commission and the parties answer questions. This is when we hear what you want us to do in this case. On the other hand, a lot of people come to these proceedings with questions, legitimate questions as to the procedure and what is asked for and what role the public staff and so forth. So there are representatives of the company here and the representatives of the public staff here. And so to the extent that you want to have your questions answered, you need to see them at a break or after the proceeding to get your questions answered. All right, let's hear from the witnesses of Mr. Cruz.
Bill Whalen.
I do. Thank you. Good evening. Can you see me over there? Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Bill Whalen. I'm a staff attorney with Pisgah Legal Services in Asheville and a native of Asheville. We provide free civil legal services to low-income folks in Western North Carolina. I've been here doing this for 37 years, and I'm speaking on behalf of Pisgah Legal Service to oppose the rate hike proposed that's under consideration today. First, I'd like to urge the Commission to deny Duke's requested 75% increase in the basic utility charge or mandatory fee charged monthly to each customer. This fee is regressive, shifting a greater share of burden proportionately to individual customers and thus particularly to low-income customers who are already struggling to meet their basic needs, while benefiting those larger customers who use the most energy. At the same time, the fee increase is regressive with regard to energy conservation. Mandatory fees undercut the incentive to conserve energy and the ability of customers to save money and control their own budget by reducing their monthly use. Second, overall, the proposed rate increase will raise the average household bill for customers by hundreds of dollars each year, as you well know. Those increases will likewise have a disproportionate impact on low-income and elderly residents who are already hammered, and I can tell you this from the work I do, they are already hammered by increased taxes, sales taxes, property taxes, rising medical costs, and incomes that simply can't keep up with all the increasing cost of covering simple basic needs.
The economic recovery on Wall Street has not trickled down to rain a similar boost to the economy of Western North Carolina, where over 136,000 residents, 16% of the population, and over 40,000 children, or 25% of children, live at or below poverty level. Low-income families, those with incomes at twice the poverty level or below, make up between 35 and 50% of the counties surrounding Asheville. That varies from county to county. The impact of these rate increases may be small, but for those of us who deal with folks facing that kind of economy every day in and day out, I'm sure you will hear from witnesses who will say, this will bust my budget. And I can tell you that it will, with all the pressures. So many people are on the verge of not paying the rent, of not paying the power bill, of not eating. People aren't eating out there because they simply don't have enough income. While the demands of Wall Street echo loudly in Duke's proposed rate increase, I implore the Commission to ground your deliberations in a consideration of the financial difficulty facing so many residents of Western North Carolina and across the state. They are all part of the consuming public for which Duke's public monopoly is granted and funded. They are also our relatives and neighbors. Every cent of rate increase should not only have to be justified as benefiting the public, but particularly every cent of rate increase should be justified as providing affordable electric service to all residents. In other words, it should be just as important that affordable electric service be provided, not access to electric service, but affordable electric service be provided to all residents, that should be as important as satisfying the demands of the shareholders and Wall Street. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming. A long time no see. It's good to see you. Next one.
Dave Hollister.
Hospital.
Put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony about this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Absolutely. My name is Dave Hollister, and I'm co-founder of Sundance Power Systems, the Alliance for Energy Democracy, and I currently sit on the Energy Innovation Task Force here in Western North Carolina. I would like to bring a new term into this discussion. The term predatory delay is defined as the blocking or slowing of needed change in order to make money off unsustainable, unjust systems in the meantime. This rate case represents predatory delay in three ways. First, we are being asked to pay for coal ash created over decades. The argument is that since Duke, we asked Duke to create this energy, we should pay the cost. But the reality is that dumping coal ash into ponds was not the best plan. It was the least cost plan. It was a flagrant form of predatory delay. Secondly, this rate case includes money to continue to build out dirty energy infrastructure. This request represents a form of predatory delay to defend a failing business model by building a substantially typically dirty energy infrastructure now, rather than creating the grid of the future now. The people are demanding that you now listen to us and help us create this clean energy future. If you follow Duke down the road of predatory delay, you will be complicit and will be in violation of your constitutional mandate. And third, as we have shown, we have not been very good in honestly accepting all of the costs associated with our dirty energy generation and infrastructure. So let's not make this mistake when it comes to carbon loading or climate change. We have consensus in the scientific community that we're in serious trouble. A predatory delay in this regard could be catastrophic. Clearly, if we had vision and common sense, we would have taken responsibility for coal ash when it was being created. We would have acknowledged the environmental costs immediately into the equation and handling of such waste. We have consistently miscalculated the true costs since we look through a jaded regulatory lens that does not include these externalized environmental externalities and, I'd like to point out, risk, which I think is very important in the years to come. Now I find where I am. The coal ash request is one of the largest and most egregious cost-shifting requests in the history of this body, I can imagine. And I know you guys are very conscious about cost shifting, but this is, a flagrant predatory delay tactic, and all of these types of predatory delay are forms of cost shifting. We're putting these costs out to future generations or future ratepayers. So who is culpable for this lack of vision and environmental stewardship, the predatory delay? Who bears responsibility for the least cost methodology, for short-term profits of private corporations cutting, environmental corners? That is the question before you. I do know one thing, not one of us made that decision. This cost shifting of coal ash and dirty energy infrastructure onto ratepayers is a shunning of personal responsibility of this body and of Duke Energy. We must learn from this situation now so we do not repeat it. We must not let predatory delay to once again put us in financial and environmental jeopardy in the future. I recommend that before we allow Duke to monetize any of these costs, we have a deep, truthful discussion about the regulatory lens we look through, that we evaluate how and why we allowed cross-subsidies and cost-shifting to occur, that we develop a cohesive vision of the clean energy grid of the future, what that grid looks like, what the future of our energy system looks like, and most importantly, what role Duke should play in developing the future so we can all get to work doing the job together.
Thank you, sir. That's it. Any questions? Any questions from Mr. Hall?
None from Duke.
Mr. Cruz, if you want to make sure that you ask and witnesses get up here whether progress energy customers.
Yes, we have that on the sign-up sheet, and we will ask as well.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Thank you.
Dan Gilbert.
Put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand, please, sir. You solemnly swear that the testimony about in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Mr. Gilbert, before you start, are you a Duke Energy Progress customer?
I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing. Okay.
Are you a Duke Energy Progress customer?
Yes.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay. My name's Dan Gilbert. I live at 115 Justin Trail in Arden. We live in a house, we've been there 20 years. We're across the river from the Duke Energy coal ash ponds. We're within the half-mile offset of the compliance boundary. Back in June, I went to the doctor, alternative medicine doctor, and I just had a routine hair analysis, which I hadn't had done in like 20 years. And the analysis came back, and this line right here was 100 percentile, which means out of 100 people, I have the highest level of the 100th person. It's manganese. In I'll have further tests later on, but related to that. In August last year, Duke came out and tested our water. They did some really fancy tests. I was impressed. Impressed with them. But anyway, this sheet here shows that the manganese level was 4 times the level that's a standard. So I'm not saying that the manganese in my body came from the coal ash contaminants, but I'll show you this. This is from Duke's engineers, not Duke's engineers, Centera, who Duke contracted with. This is a map out of their workbooks. This is our neighborhood right here. There's about 10 of us there, and there's a few over here. But you can see. Can you show it to the commissioners, please? Okay, sure. This is the river, and these are the coal ash ponds right here, and this white area here is our neighborhood. And we appreciate Duke doing the testing. We would not have been able to afford it ourselves. You're wondering how coal ash contaminants could get across the river, under the river. And that's one of the things in the state law that's preventing us from getting water, public water. This is also from Centera's books where they did the study. If you can see here, and I'm an engineer, by the way, I've been through, this report here is over 1,000 pages long. But anyway, this over here is Lake Julian. This is where the plant is, coal ash pits, French Broad River. This is one of my neighbor's wells, and this is our well. And you can see Lake Julian is really high up. Then you got French Broad River, and then our wells are way below the French Broad River. What the engineers stated in this report is there's a possibility that the hydrostatic pressure from Lake Julian is pushing the water from the coal ash, under the coal ash pits into our water table. And when we pull water out of our water table, then this contaminated water is going to keep coming over here, over to our water table. Everyone across the river is getting a water connection to Asheville, paid for by Duke Power. Why are we not? The reason being, there's a stipulation in the law that says we are across the river, so contaminants can't get under the river. We disagree. We think that there are contaminants that are getting into our wells. There's 26 neighbors on our side, and we were asking the commission to allow Duke and DEQ and local water people to work together to get us public water. We are all fairly close to public water, but we cannot afford to run water mains down public highways to split off to our neighborhood. There's no way we can afford it. It would probably, I'm guessing, probably $325,000 would serve every one of our neighbors, get us all public water. I have a letter that I've been writing for over a month, waiting for this hearing. I finished it today, and it's a letter / petition that I would like to submit into record. We are going to be getting everybody in the neighborhood to sign it that's willing to sign it, and they all want city water. They don't want these filtering systems that Duke has offered us, because it degrades the property value. How much longer do I have? You're out of time. Out of time, okay. Well, we got the point. Mark is exhibits.
Right. How many of those introduce as exhibits to the commission.
Just this one, because Duke has the others.
What about the other ones? Do you want those? We'll return them to you.
You can have them if you like them.
Okay, I'll make sure you get them back.
Mr. Gilbert, Duke may have them, but the commission does not.
I can't hear where the sound's coming from.
Duke may have those documents, but the commission does not, and that's why I asked if you wanted them introduced as exhibits.
Okay.
Why don't you tell me how many pages are there?
There'll be 5 exhibits.
Okay. We ask they be marked as Gilbert exhibits 1 through 5.
Mr. Mark, questions? No questions?
No questions.
Thanks for coming out, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
Kathy Culver.
See, put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the testimony about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Ms. Culver, are you a Duke Energy Progress customer?
I am.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Yes, hi. I'm just an average citizen, so I fear that I will not speak as eloquently as the gentleman who preceded me. The first gentleman who spoke is speaking about the same things that I'm concerned about with the poor, with the increases all around this segment of our society. They're having to choose between their housing, their food, their medicines, their transportation. They cannot continue to juggle these items continually from week to week, day to day. Secondly, I would like to say that we have known for at least a century and a half that dealing with coal and its byproducts is adverse to human health. If big business were concerned with the health of people, we would not have had to create OSHA. Cost shifting and cost irresponsibility, which the second gentleman alluded to, is certainly at play here. When Duke chose to not line those pits and allow that coal ash byproduct to get into people's wells that live nearby. That's just deplorable. So now we have a new technology that destroys 3 things all at once. Aren't we lucky? Air pollution, fragmenting the ground, creating earthquakes, and other health issues all at once while destroying 1 million gallons of water per well. Lucky us. Let's stop the fracking. Let's use wind and solar. Let's help our communities survive. Thank you for hearing me today.
Next is Becky Walker.
Becky Walker. Becky Walker. Next witness.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. We are calling for Becky Walker if she would care to make a statement. If she's not here, we'll move to Judy Maddox.
Put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do, thank you.
People are having a hard time hearing, so if you speak up so they can hear what you have to say.
Yes, can you hear me? Yes. Thank you. Good evening, good evening, hello. I'm Judy Maddox. I'm chair of our Western North Carolina Sierra Club, and our 6,000 members and supporters of Western North Carolina Sierra Club are calling upon you, North Carolina Utilities Commission, to reject a proposal by Duke Energy to make
consumers pay for the company's coal ash cleanup through the request for higher bills and fees. Duke Energy's proposal will result in the typical residential customer seeing the fixed charge that they pay every month, regardless of the amount of energy that they actually really use, double from $11.13 to $19.50. This would especially, as you've been hearing, impact low income, but also renewable energy customers. Added to this fixed charge, the usage rate increase would result in the average residential customer seeing a 16.7% increase, approximately $18 every month. We oppose this plan because it puts the entire burden of costs related to the cleanup of toxic coal ash on our customers. North Carolina law only allows for utilities costs to be paid by customers if they are reasonable and prudent. Duke's own energy providers have refused to cover costs associated with Duke's coal ash liabilities, citing Duke's failure, quote, to take reasonable measures to avoid and or mitigate the damages resulting from coal ash disposal. In 2015, Duke Energy pled guilty to violating environmental laws relating to coal ash pollution from 5 of its North Carolina power plants. Coal ash has resulted in contamination of lakes, rivers, drinking water. North Carolina have paid a heavy price, and now Duke Energy wants to bill us for their negligence and mismanagement. We say no.
Next is Kelly Williams.
Ms. Williams.
And I would please ask the audience not to vocalize. We'll just take statements through the witness stand.
Hi. You solemnly swear the testimony about to give this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do, sir.
Ms. Williams, are you a Duke Energy Progress customer?
I am.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay. So I'm just going to make it short and sweet for you guys. The rate increase is ludicrous, and the reason I say that is state employees went almost 15 years without any kind of salary increase. And in less than 3 years, they've received very small increases. And this is excluding teachers, but other state employees. And what you're asking in your rate increase, I haven't seen in my salary in almost 18 years. And so I just think that, you know, a little thought into that type of rate increase on an average individual is just really more than should be taken in by that person. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Questions, Ms. Williams? Thank you for coming out tonight.
Stephanie Pazuski, and forgive me if I mispronounced that.
Left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear the testimony about to give this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
And would you please first tell us if you are a Duke Energy Progress
I
customer?
am.
Thank you.
My name is Stephanie Bazuski, and I live at 312 Covewood Trail, Asheville, North Carolina. And I want to thank you, commissioners, tonight for listening to my testimony and hearing what we all have to say here. I'm a retired single female. This requested rate hike places an especially harsh burden on me and all of us who live on a fixed income. This fixed rate hike proposal denies me the freedom to take responsibility for my electric use and control my costs. This past July, my electric bill skyrocketed to 637 kilowatt hours from July 2016's use of 518 kilowatt hours. I tracked down the cause and replaced an aging dehumidifier that had become really inefficient. I used 468 kilowatt hours in August. It was important for me to lower my bill by $17.85. At age 67, I'm not in a position to boost my income. Money I am forced to pay to Duke as a fixed amount is money that I can't spend at Asheville's Fine Arts Movie Theater, at CVS, at the Farmers Market, at Bojangles. Owners and employees of all of local businesses suffer without my patronage. Duke's proposed mandatory fixed rate hike not only denies me my consumer rights, it also negatively impacts our local economy. And I want choices. When I need an internet provider, I have choices. AT&T, Charter, Skyrunner. I can choose products not only by comparing what each company offers and how much they charge, but also whether I prefer satellite, cable, or DSL technology. I don't know how it came about, but today I can only obtain the basic necessity of electric power from one for-profit, publicly held corporation, and it's all on its terms. My only choice should not be to fuel Duke's single-minded plans in efforts I don't agree with. I want to be able to buy the energy product that's solely derived from a renewable resource, and I'd really like that option at a fair and competitive price. Commissioners, that may sound ambitious or naive or inconvenient, but it is possible. So I ask you to redefine their proposal, give Duke goals that require them to offer me the option to buy an environmentally safe energy product soon. Finally, I have no children. But that does not diminish how much I care about the well-being of your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren. Just as I care about the welfare of all of North Carolina's children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. In giving this testimony, I'm counting on you to represent my good character and goodwill to future generations. Ensure that all of us North Carolinians and our posterity have clean, affordable energy, always. Do not approve a long-term debt of expensive, myopic investments like fracked gas power plants. Your ruling on this proposal will impact North Carolina for decades. Let our citizen testimonies embolden you to ask better questions than you're used to asking with regard to Duke proposed increases. Set higher standards than you're used to defining for them. Please do not allow a fixed rate hike, especially one that most adversely affects residential customers and those on fixed incomes. Please do not allow Duke to invest in soon-to-be obsolete gas power plant technology. Please be loyal to your oath to provide fair regulation that is in the interest of the public. I am trusting you to use your authority to fulfill that obligation. Thank you.
More questions?
Oh, yes.
I would just like to ask you, please spell your name for the record.
B as in Baker, I, Z as in zebra.
Can't hear you guys.
I'm spelling my last name. B-I-Z-I-E-W-S as in Stephanie, K-I.
Brad Rouse.
tell them Bible and raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear that the testimony about in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Mr. Rouse, if you will speak up so the folks in the back of the room can hear you.
Sure. I'm Brad Rouse. I have a background in utility planning and regulation. I am also executive director of Energy Savers Network, which is a new nonprofit engaged in mobilizing our community to reduce energy consumption, particularly focused on lower income households. I also am an active participant in the Energy Innovation Task Force. I'd like to first of all thank the Commission for supporting the task force collaborative efforts to move towards a cleaner energy future. I'm like that you asked Duke to report back every year on their efforts, and I think we're making good progress. I pray that you will continue that support and extend it as we propose changes in Duke's programs and possibly introduce pilot programs that would be specific to this area in the future. So thank you for that. Turning to the case at hand, by the granting of monopoly status, you give Duke the opportunity to set rates to earn a very attractive rate of return. Duke, for its part, is required to operate in the public interest, kind of as you know, their part of the equation. The rate of return isn't guaranteed, and Duke should not earn its return if this commission determines that past actions or future plans do not represent the public interest. By the granting, Duke's rates instead should be increased only to the extent that it's in the public interest. It is in the public interest to empower our citizens to control their energy bills. It's in the public interest to move to a cleaner energy future, to reduce pollution and to combat climate change. Aspects of this rate increase request, which move us towards such a future, a cleaner energy future, that are in the public interest, should be approved. Aspects that are not in the public interest should not be approved, and some of the aspects in this request are not. In particular, coal ash recovery, expense recovery, should only be provided up to the cost that would have been incurred if Duke had acted in the public interest in the first place. So if they'd done the right thing, that would have cost them some money. They saved some money to the extent that they have expenses that are up to that level, then that should be the cost recovery. But to the extent that their expenses are above that, that really was not in the public interest, so that should be denied and should be borne instead by stockholders. On the other hand, expenditures in the budget and in the plans to modernize the grid so that we can move towards a cleaner energy future and be more adaptive and accepting of renewable energy and the kinds of sources that need to power us in the future. If Duke needs to spend money on that and charge us for that, I would say go ahead and do it. Over the longer term, though, that's going to actually reduce rates, but they may have to spend some money up front, and I think that's an appropriate thing to do. On the other hand, if some of the expenditures that they're asking for recovery on are for things like pipelines that aren't necessarily needed to move us toward that future, then that should not be allowed to be included until it's proven that they were actually used and useful and in the public interest. Now, Duke's proposed increase in the customer charge from $11 to, I think I heard, $19. That's clearly not in the public interest. Certainly there are theoretical rate design issues that support such a change, or that may be argued. But I would just balance that theory against the practical need, our practical need as a community to reduce wasteful energy consumption. Energy waste has a cost too, and that cost should be reflected in the incentives to save. We don't include all of the costs in the energy, and having a lot of it go towards the customer charge really is not reflective of those true costs to society. Most importantly, though, increasing the customer charge hurts lower income people far more than the rest of it. I would like to add, it disempowers low income people. It disempowers all of us. It removes your choice. You've got to pay it. You've got to have electricity. It removes your choice. Now, over the last year, Energy Savers Network has been working with lower income people to help them lower their utility bills. Disabled and elderly people in particular have a high energy cost, as a percentage of their income, much, much higher than the average in this area. I've seen reports as high as 30% of their income being spent on utility bills. We're working really hard in Energy Savers Network to try to reduce that, to try to get them to take responsibility. And here we're out working at all of the things that they can do to take actions to be responsible, but now we're here, they're going to be hit with a rate increase anyway, and they're taking that control away. So I think we should just keep open the opportunity for people to have control over their energy bills and not take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Questions, Mr. Rice? Thanks for coming out tonight, Mr.
Thank you.
Rice.
Jerry Cruz Segura.
Solemnly swear that the testimony about giving this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm Xavier Boatwright, and I've actually been given permission to speak on behalf of Jerry Cruz. About 10 minutes before this started, Jerry suffers from a few chronic illnesses, and she was near the point of fainting. She has a monitor on her, and her blood pressure dropped to a severe level. So on her behalf, I just thank you all for letting me speak on her behalf. Jerry lives on 28, I'm Xavier Boatwright, by the way, from Clean Water for North Carolina. And Xavier lives on, Jerry lives at 218 Sumner Drive, and Jerry is on bottled water provided by Duke Energy. Her statement reads, "My name is Jerry Cruz Segura, and I am here to oppose Duke Energy's rate request to increase the residential electrical rates by over 16%. Duke Energy's request to the North Carolina Utilities Commission is nothing short of being obscure. I know of several families that cannot afford this type of rate increase, and it is sad when any family has to choose between heat, food, or clean water. My family and I have been on bottled water for nearly 1,000 days. Now that is wrong for Duke Energy to take so long to provide Arden and other cities with a permanent clean water solution. But how is it that Duke Energy thinks they can ask a dime from us when clearly the coal ash fiasco is their problem and not ours? On my street in Sumner Drive in Arden, we have 3 individuals and 5 dogs die of cancer. 2 of those dogs were mine. My point by mentioning the above facts is this. On the lot of land where the 3 individuals and 2 dogs died of cancer, their well water was tested by the county, and the results showed that they had concerning levels of hexavalent chromium. The level was above the CAMA levels. Unfortunately, the perception of these needless deaths is that Duke Energy's toxic leaking coal ash basins contaminated me and other families' wells. Duke has known for years about their online leaking toxic coal ash basins, and they either ignored the problem or forgot to avoid cleaning them up. I am now asking the North Carolina Utilities Commission to do the right thing. Please do not let Duke raise our residential electrical rates. We should not have to fix their toxic problems. Some of us cannot afford to do that. Please understand when I say that Duke needs to man up and show some moral fiber. Let them fix their own mistakes. Thank you, North Carolina Utilities Commission, for your time and consideration. And thank you guys for letting me present this on her behalf. Oh, also, Jerry wanted me to show you guys, these are the pictures of the folks that she is referring to in her statements that have died of cancer on her street. Thank you.
Next is Ken Brain.
solemnly swear that the testimony about to give this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
I do. And I'm a customer of Duke Progress. First of all, thanks to the commission, thanks to the staff for driving all the way out to Western North Carolina. But it's a beautiful place to come visit, so hope you got here in time to see our beautiful mountains. I'd like to start my remarks by saying that I feel that a portion of the proposed rate hike, or portions of it, are both short-sighted and unnecessary. A significant portion of the rate hike is to build unnecessary natural gas-powered electric generating units. These plants are unnecessary for 3 reasons. Utility demand growth is overstated. Over the past 4 years, Duke Energy Progress's electrical consumption growth has been relatively flat, but the utility is projecting a 1.1% pre-energy efficiency growth rate and a 0.9% post-energy efficient growth rate. Certainly not the flat rate we're currently seeing. The 2017 demand projection by the Virginia-Carolina Service Region produced by the Energy Information Administration as part of the annual Energy Outlook projects a more modest net energy growth rate in the region of 0.4% from 2017 through 2028. A big difference between what Duke Progress is projecting, and a big driver of why they're asking for more capacity than we feel that is justified by those numbers. Secondly, the energy efficiency is not adequately considered to reduce future demand. Energy efficiency has not grown in the resource mix over the past 4 years relative to demand growth. In 2016, energy efficiency offset 0.4% of the generation in Duke Energy Progress. The American Council on Energy Efficiency Economy ranks North Carolina 30th in the nation in terms of total percent savings from energy efficiency. In addition, Duke Energy Progress placed in the bottom quartile in savings achieved from efficiency and ranked 35th out of 51 utilities on their energy efficiency scorecard. Again, in my company and my companies that I worked for over the years, if we were in the bottom quartile, there was definitely room for improvement, and we were expected to figure out ways to make that happen. We want Duke to do the same thing. They need to increase energy efficiency so that they're no longer in the bottom quartile. There's clearly room for improvement here. That, coupled with the energy savings from LED lighting, more energy efficient appliances, new buildings providing more energy efficiency opportunities, we think are providing more energy efficiency opportunities than Duke is projecting. Again, showing demand and overbuilding than what is needed. Thirdly, we think the new renewable energy sources are not being planned adequately, as Duke Energy Progress seems to be continuing a business as usual fossil fuel approach to providing energy. Although renewable energy and energy efficiency are required to supply 12.5% of the utility sales by 2021, Duke Energy Progress plans to add very little utility scale solar or wind capacity to the grid. North Carolina has consistently been in the top 4 states for utility scale solar installations for the past several years. Onshore wind generation is just beginning in North Carolina, although it is now the cheapest form of new energy in many parts of the country. Offshore wind also offers great potential in North Carolina. In dramatic contrast to Duke Energy's fossil fuel reliant vision, the Sierra Club has gotten the GreenLink Group, a well-respected energy research firm. Have evaluated a cleaner energy pathway whereby 23% of electricity demand can be met by resources such as energy efficiency, distributed and utility scale solar, wind and hydroelectric power, demand response, and energy storage technologies. In this cleaner energy plan, none of the new fossil fuel and nuclear capacity that Duke has proposed to construct over the next 10 years would be needed. And 7 coal plants currently on Duke's system can be retired between 2018 and 2027 because they are unnecessary to meet the system demand. The results of this study suggested that the cleaner energy plan will not only maintain the reliability of the grid and make electricity service more affordable for North Carolinians, it will reduce the environmental impact associated with electricity production. The Cleaner Energy Plan will deliver tangible financial benefits to North Carolina electricity ratepayers. The reduction in customer electricity demand due to energy efficiency, demand response, and distributed renewable sources translates to lower overall consumption and lower electricity bills for consumers. Despite the modest beginnings, the savings ramp up quickly and eventually could reach a cumulative savings of $5.4 billion for Duke Energy customers. Relative to the business as usual residential approach that Duke is proposing, residential customers would see an average $101 reduction in their annual electricity bills, and non-residential customers would experience a $611 annual electric energy bill savings rather than the increases that are being put. I will summarize and wrap up by saying that we're asking Duke Energy to invest in energy efficiency, renewable energy, rather than in more fossil fuel plants that will become very expensive backup or excessive plant peak demand units before they're ever paid for. In my 35 years of running a business, I didn't have the luxury of being able to overbuild unneeded capacity with obsolete technology. Duke Progress shouldn't expect ratepayers to fund that for them either. I will leave copies of both my remarks as well as the Pathway to Cleaner Energy study with staff. Thank you. Oops. Questions?
Hartwell Carson.
As long as witness testimony about to give this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Walker, two people found that monitor over there, we don't want to run over some people.
My name is Hartwell Carson, and I work as the French Broad River Keeper for Mountain True. Mountain True is Western North Carolina's oldest and largest environmental advocacy organization, and we champion resilient forests, clean water, clean energy, and healthy communities across Western North Carolina. Since coming on board as the River Keeper for Mountain True, an important part of my work has been fighting for Duke Energy to clean up its toxic coal ash waste that is polluting the French Broad River, and many other rivers across our state. This is a fight that Duke Energy has spent millions of dollars to try and win. They have fought our effort to protect people and clean water at every turn. They have fought us with dozens of high-priced lawyers and 3 law firms. They have fought us with a massively expensive PR campaign. And their lobbyists fought us in the halls of the North Carolina General Assembly. It was a fight that should not have been fought. Mountain True, along with many other environmental groups, businesses, and the general public, recognize the dangers that storing coal ash in unlined holes in the ground along our river pose to public health and our waterways. And because of this danger, we demanded action from Duke. Instead of action, we got stiff and expensive resistance. As part of Duke's almost 17% rate increase, Duke now wants ratepayers to pay for that resistance as well as cleanup costs that have yet to incur to the tune of $195 million a year. While we think Duke should clean up all of their coal ash, we shouldn't pay for their fight against cleaning it up, and we shouldn't give Duke Energy a blank check for work they haven't yet completed. In fact, there are many coal ash sites across North Carolina that Duke is still refusing to clean up. The Cliffside Power Plant just down the road in Rutherford County is polluting the Broad River, and Duke Energy is still refusing to clean up its ash there despite having room in a lined landfill across the street. While we are happy to see an increase in investments in solar projects, Duke continues to double down on fossil fuels by requesting over $400 million for natural gas plants, over twice their request for new solar projects. Duke Energy continues to drag its feet on cleaning up coal ash in North Carolina and transitioning to clean energy, and we think the Utilities Commission should deny this overly broad request that doesn't take us far enough in the direction of a clean energy future. Thank you.
Next is Kendall Hale.
You solemnly swear the testimony about this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And are you a Duke Energy Progress customer?
Yes, unfortunately, I still am.
Okay. Please proceed with your statement.
Yes, yes, sir. Thank you again. I wish I didn't have to come back. I've been speaking to you for probably over 10 years about almost everything that everyone has mentioned so far. I'm terrified about the direction that this state and this country and the world is going. The more we burn fossil fuels, the faster we are going towards dangerous and more terrible storms that we've seen hit the country and our coasts and partly here in the western part of the state. So I'm asking you again, I'm taking a little bit different approach than I usually do, but I do want to remind you, as others have, your responsibility as commissioners is to defend the public interest. Your job is to defend the health and safety of the public. That means no more burning of fossil fuels from Duke. We have to get into 100% renewable energy. So there's some things I'd like you to do that I think might speed this process in the right direction. Investigate and audit. What are the outstanding questions that an audit might answer? Has Duke Energy done a comparative cost-benefit analysis for a business plan that would investigate heavily in distributed and would invest heavily in distributed and conventional solar, wind, and hydroelectric as energy fuels, as well as investing heavily in battery storage and in making use of the entire spectrum of demand-side options, including conservation, load management, and efficiency programs. If they have not developed such a comparison plan, then I think, is that not negligent? An audit would reveal probable deficiencies in Duke's planning process here. Number two, has Duke Energy arrived at its projected energy demand in its service areas? Duke has adjusted its own 2014 calculations downward, I think we heard this before, from forecasting average growth of 1% per year to less than half that, 0.4% growth per year. Number two, what figures is Duke using regarding the need for natural gas over the next 10 to 20 years? Several researchers, including our own department, our Department of Energy, our federal Department of Energy, disagree with Duke's statements of gas demand for electricity generation. Does Duke's plan address the market volatility of natural gas? And how do they address the high probability of overbuilding gas pipelines to the region, resulting in stranded assets, which would be a heavy blow for their investors? I don't think Duke would want to hear a headline like this recent one about SCANA, the South Carolina utility. Big headline, SCANA stocks sinks on news of federal investigation in VC summer nuclear project. The federal investigation came about, by the way, because of a lack of a thorough audit. Number three, climate change has led Duke to plan moving the power lines underground. But would a cost-benefit analysis support installing or allowing widespread distributed solar as more economical, also lowering transmission loss and risk of cyber attack? The $4.9 billion, which you've heard before, yes, this is $1 billion, that Duke allocated to moving these power lines could instead make distributed solar and community battery storage a reality throughout North Carolina. Was that calculation made in their plan? Again, an audit would help answer these questions. Given the enthusiastic bipartisan reception, people on both sides want a carbon tax. This has been shown over and over again. There's bipartisan support for a carbon tax. Has Duke calculated the effect that would have on its portfolio? With a carbon tax in states with competitive electric utilities, the race would be on to wean away from fossil fuel use. It isn't clear how Duke Energy, as a monopoly with no competitors,
We all want to have our own a utility company here in Asheville. But because it's a monopoly with no competitors, how would they handle the cost of a carbon tax? Is calculating for this reflected in the plan? An investigation and an audit would reveal how realistically Duke is looking at the cultural and economic changes that are happening all around us. Due to these issues, many of us believe that an investigation leading to an independent audit really must happen before anything else is decided. Thank you.
Marston Blow.
Last name, please.
B-L-O-W.
So be it. I will. Oh. Hello, thank you for having me. I'm an artist, and it's difficult with glasses. Getting older. I'm an artist. I live in Asheville. I'm a customer of Duke. It is a monopoly. We have to be. And I'm one of those people who care about the planet and the future of the planet. And I want to know, like, who doesn't want the rate hike? Okay? Who in this room does not want the rate hike? All right, speak to the commission. Okay, I guess y'all don't want the methane plants or the pipeline. Who wants clean, renewable energy? Protect the water? Okay, I'm really worried. This is really global climate change is happening now, and we've got to change with it. We are severely threatened, and it impacts us now. We know that, and it's impacting us in the future. So we're asking you to think and act, be in the highest integrity, work for the good of all. Why do we, the people, have to beg corporations and utility commissions to do the right thing for everyone? Because our system is somewhat corrupt, and we know it. Okay? Corporations are in control. They are non-entities, and one of their purposes is to make money at any cost. It wasn't like that in the beginning. They used to be subordinate to the will of the people. In the beginning, I mean the beginning of this country. The directors and investors were held financially responsible for any damage the company created, and there also was a time limit on how long they were, and they couldn't own all this property and have all this power. So anyway, if they reprofit, they should be paying penalties, clean up pollution. I get things in the mail that Duke and the directors of Duke are propagandizing themselves as bringing clean, renewable energy to our future. And they're in the mail. They're like, "Hi, solar panels," and they don't show like dead fish or people dying of cancer. There's a price to the fossil fuels. I mean, you can look at it one way. I am an artist. I see things differently. I see the earth as being under attack, and the fossil fuel industry is bombing mountains for coal, oil in the water, 5-syllable chemicals in our drinking water, methane, trapping the heat in. This is real. Our future is going down in flames. Excuse me. So we're just asking, the directors of Duke to be responsible and really do the clean energy thing, really do solar panels, look into it. I second everything Kendall said about an audit, looking into it. We request the commission to deny the rate hike and deny the new methane plants and a pipeline that will cross the waters. And I don't know why public utilities are owned by a private entity. We need responsible, intelligent, caring governance. And I mean caring and for the people, not for investors and profit. So I'm asking y'all, don't be complicit in this fossil fuel industry predatory delay, let's make as much money as we can while everything still feels good. I mean, climate change is happening now. Let's be part of the change. Be bold and listen to the people. Thank you.
Samantha Wilds.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know. It's okay.
If you'll raise your right hand, please, ma'am.
Okay.
You solemnly swear that the testimony about to give this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes. Okay, whenever you're ready. Okay. My name is Samantha Wilds, and I'm from Canton, North Carolina.
Pull the microphone up, sir.
I'm sorry. I didn't know where it was at. Sorry.
Just relax. You're okay.
My name is Samantha Wilds. I'm from Canton, North Carolina, and I'm here to tell you that I'm just a normal citizen too. From day to day, I live on a fixed income. I am totally blind, and I think that we shouldn't have to pay for Duke Progress Energy's mistakes. And also, the CEO made a statement that I did not like. She might be able to pay the 16%, but some of us cannot afford to pay the 16%. And she suggested that if we can't pay that 16%, then we should just take cold showers. I don't believe in that mess. I think everybody should be treated fair. And also the winter time is coming up too, so what about the heat? I mean, heat can make your power bill go up. I mean, I think we should be able to run our heat as long as we need to. Because some people have health issues and they can't afford to get sick. And we have a petition. There was 1,500 people that have signed this petition to not get the 16%, the rate for Duke Energy. I guess that's it. We're going to submit the petition.
We're going to sit, yeah.
You have it in mind?
Mm-hmm.
We have it right here.
Is that all you wanted to say?
Yes, that's it.
We'll accept the petition as well as the different.
All right. Here's your
Thank you as well. Be careful.
I'm going to grab this petition. Okay. And then I'm going to write it.
Next is Kathy Scott.
Bible, please raise your
May I,
hand.
may I affirm?
I affirm. You solemnly affirm that the testimony about you this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do. I am a Duke customer. First, I want to thank the commissioners for coming to this part of the state. I know it's a long drive for you, and you're hearing many voices. Thank you very much for doing that. I'm testifying today because the more I look at and read about Duke Energy's plan for the company, including the Western North Carolina Modernization Plan and the spending plan that was unveiled by North Carolina Duke Energy President David Fountain in early April, the more I ask myself, do they know what they're doing? The plans seem expensive, harmful, reckless with regard to their investors, and risky in many other ways to the rest of us. Who, I wondered, vets these plans? Well, it turns out that the answer is you, the Public Utility Commissioners. In some respects, you function as the ratepayer's fiduciary. None of us, certainly, are in the position that the PUC is in to be able to review the soundness and the legality of Duke Energy's management decisions and plans. Frankly, I didn't know that you had this authority and this responsibility until I looked at the general statutes and found the following under Chapter 62, Public Utilities, Article 3, Powers and Duties of Utilities Commission, Section 37, Investigations. And it reads this way. The Commission may, on its own motion and whenever it may be necessary in the performance of its duties, investigate and examine the condition and management of public utilities. The Commission is authorized to order any such investigations or audit to be undertaken by a competent, qualified, and independent, and no offense, not the public staff, firm selected by the Commission, such audit to thoroughly examine the efficiency and effectiveness of management decisions, among other factors, as directed by the Commission. There are some outstanding questions for Duke Energy, and I think another person who testified a few ago raised some of those questions. And Duke Energy's response to these questions, your public staff consideration of the worth and adequacy of their responses, and your final decision will have bearing on investors and customers, including the matter of the rate hikes, and more importantly, the financial soundness and the sustainability of Duke Energy as a publicly traded company. So I don't think I'm wrong in saying we the people call for a Public Utilities Commission initiated investigation and audit into Duke Energy's long-term planning, calculations, analyses, and data. In other words, into their business plan. Investigate and audit. Please, investigate and audit. Thank you.
The next name, I'm having a little trouble reading the handwriting. It looks like J-U-D something A, K-A-U or O-T-M-A-U. That sounds familiar. Please step forward. Should have been a doctor. Maybe you are.
Left down the Bible, please. Raise your right hand. Put your left hand on the Bible. You solemnly swear that the testimony about you in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
And if you will say and spell your name for us, please.
My name is Judith Kaufman, Judith Kaufman.
MAN. All right. Oh, okay. At the risk of repeating things that have already been said by some very eloquent speakers tonight, I would like to address the commissioners and say that none of us would be here tonight, or not for as long, if Duke hadn't made the decision to try and save money by disposing of their coal ash in a dangerous and really illegal manner. They wanted to save money up front and then push it down the road, and hopefully they wouldn't get caught, but they have. The birds have come home to roost now, and now they're going to have to pay for it. There's 3 places that they can get the money to pay for it from: their insurance company, us the consumers, or their investors. Well, their insurance company has said, we're not going to pay. You've done this in a very irresponsible way. We're not liable for this. See you around. There's laws protecting all of us as consumers. We cannot be charged for Duke's errors to clean them up unless they were done in a responsible and prudent manner. Well, they weren't. So we should not be held responsible and be charged more. Their third, way of getting money is to charge their investors. Now, these people invested in Duke freely. Nobody, twisted their arm. Nobody made them do it. And if they had done their due diligence, they would have looked at some of the other energy companies around the country. For one, Pacific Gas and Electric, because they didn't do due diligence and didn't repair their gas lines and upgrade them, blew up a whole neighborhood. So, there's some things going on here. I would ask the commissioners to seriously consider doing the legal thing, not charging the consumers of Duke's Energy, and please put it back on Duke and their decision with their investors. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman.
Can I go?
That's all, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Steve Carter.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
And your name is Steve Carter.
Yes. I don't think I need to repeat, although I agree with many of the things that others have said here tonight, particularly with reference to the amount of money that you're being asked to approve as a rate hike to be used for cleaning up the coal ash. It's difficult to see that as justified in any way, and it continues to amaze me, although perhaps it shouldn't, that Duke continues to try to foist this onto the customers, even after they've lost in court and their insurance company won't help them either. Clearly, they should be paying for this out of profits, out of investor money, or perhaps if they really don't have the money to pay for it, that some of the responsible people should take reduced salaries for a while in order to pay for it. Although I don't imagine they'd be particularly interested in that. I wish to speak primarily to the questions, some of the lesser amounts that they're asking for, and that have been referred to by a number of people, and that is in the plans that Duke supposedly has to modernize the production of electricity in this part of the country and in the distribution of it. I would like to suggest that you deny that to them, because it is, first of all, technology that is becoming obsolete. Now, large conservative organizations tend to continue to invest in obsolete technologies because that's what they know. The people that work there studied that in school. They know how to build those kinds of plants and do those kinds of things. But if past history is any example, large companies and small companies who have had a lot of trouble adapting as things change tend to go out of business. We've seen that with everything from the classic example of the makers of buggy whips as the automobile came into being, to much more recent examples of automotive industries that continued to make cars that people didn't want and therefore were overtaken by other manufacturers. The technology that is being developed now for the generation and production of electricity from other than the burning of fossil fuels is growing at a very rapid rate. And it's not only the use of sunshine to generate electricity that is becoming available, but there's a lot of other things under investigation too. Everything from the use of hydrogen in fuel cells, which may or may not turn out to work. However, there's a great ferment in the whole world of energy generation. In the days when we were generating electricity, either from water power, like at Niagara Falls or Boulder Dam, or through coal or nuclear plants, or now natural gas plants, where we had to have large central generators and then distribute the power they were producing over hundreds and thousands of miles of power grid, is becoming less and less adaptable to our present circumstances. Whatever the cause of global warming too, I suppose, the effects of atmospheric turbulence on electric infrastructure and grid, as we see with the recent hurricanes having completely eliminated the ability to have electric power in a place like Puerto Rico because of their grid. We now have the opportunity to move the generation from central points to much more local, which of course Duke wouldn't like because they can't charge for it if it's being generated in your backyard, and reduce the possibility of the environmental damage and the complete loss of electric power in storms by generating the power locally, by distributing it locally, and removing these methods of distribution and production that are becoming obsolete in our time. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Spelling the name.
That's Matthew, M-A-T-T-H-E-W, Livesey, L-I-V-S-E-Y.
Well, yes, my name is Matthew. Certainly, much of what I would like to say has already been said. I did take notes throughout all this, and at maybe one point I'll read a couple of things I wrote. Though my main intention for coming up here was really just to kind of see you all. I'm in a place in my life where I am desperate to learn as much as I can about how the fundamental structures of our world exist. Intrinsically, I feel that there's several things that are really off, that are very dangerous, that pretty much portend disasters. And over the years, as I've gotten older, I've allowed logic to maybe take more of a stronger voice than the emotion that was present in my 20s. That being said, I still can't ignore kind of coming disaster that I do see playing out. And one of the ways that I kind of get a front view to that is being a person with an autoimmune disease and reading about what has created that. I mean, what sort of things are in our environment that our immune system starts attacking our own body, whether it's the thyroid or the gut or the brain or the spine. And you know, how that relates to this particular hearing and all of why we're here, I mean, I don't know that I can really do that. That's not really the type of person I am. I am an artist, I guess, if you want to relate it to it, and a philosopher. And my brain works in overtime, and I am not very good at kind of translating from thought to speech. So coming up here is just not something that I'll ever feel comfortable doing, but I wanted to anyways. So one of the things that comes up for me as I'm listening to everyone speak is thinking about what is our number one priority. You know, for me, it is health, and no matter what action we're going to do in the future, that should be our number one priority. And I don't think that has been our number one priority, probably because it hasn't had to be. We still live in a world, sorry, I'm not speaking into the mic, so I guess people won't hear me. We still live in a world where a business model that was essentially developed right after the Civil War is still kind of playing out, where it's like someone mentioned, you know, growth, 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 build, build, build. We can basically do whatever we want as long as we can do it well and provide to the customers what they want and they're happy, then it's good. But as we've seen played out in the last 30 years, and cut me off if my time goes, I didn't speak much. Very good, very good. That in the last 30 years, it's become increasingly obvious, I think, to everyone, and I'm not going to speculate on why people either speak that these things aren't happening. We can all do that outside the hearing, but I think it becomes increasingly challenging for someone to ignore that there is a lot going on. And you know, energy is a small part of it. I'm not trying to pretend that it's like, you know, if we suddenly had 100% renewable energy in every city in the US, that all of our problems would vanish. Of course not, because it's happening on multiple sides. And I found it very interesting, and I think this is helpful for me as an individual and develops compassion for each person sitting in here to know that a lot of those things are probably affecting all of you. Like with the health thing, I mean, I can't imagine there's people in this room that don't know someone that had cancer or has cancer. And that should be extremely alarming to all of us, that exists in our world and that we're not taking it as a top level priority in everything we do. And maybe you are, you know, I like playing so much catch up and learning. I'm still super young. I have to read everything that happened in 1989 and 1996. Yeah. It's so much data, I could never begin to learn it all. But anyways, I think I'll cut it off there. Thank you for letting me speak.
Michael Hutchman.
My name is Mike Huttman, spelled Huttman. Good evening. I am here tonight to speak on behalf of Dee Williams, small business owner and candidate for Asheville City Council. She wanted to be here tonight, but could not make it. I'm going to cut her comments a little bit for sake of time and because many of these points have already been expressed. So thank you for expressing those points. Duke Energy Progress has proposed a 14.9% rate increase for its residential customers in North Carolina. This is the largest rate hike, a Raleigh-based power company has sought since it was called Carolina Power and Light in the 1980s. While cleaner than coal, natural gas is not clean. Its extraction, often by fracking, leaks methane, potent greenhouse gas. It also creates other environmental hazards, particularly in groundwater contamination. Natural gas pipelines, such as the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, co-owned by Duke and Dominion, harm the environment for clear-cutting forests, potentially contaminating surface and groundwater and displacing wildlife. This large rate hike will have negative impacts on lower-income people, especially the elderly on fixed incomes, minorities, and the working poor who struggle now from paycheck to paycheck just to get by. In Asheville, even though there's been a large amount of growth around tourism, residents are burdened by the highest housing and utility costs in the state of North Carolina and the lowest wages, which are not living wages, and where most of our local people struggle, trying to make ends meet by working 2 or more low-paying jobs and supplementing that with groceries from our local food bank. We should not have to pay for Duke's pollution and cleanup of these coal ash ponds. This is insult added to injury. We have already paid enough in health costs, and now Duke wants us to pay them more over their mistake. By that logic, can I crash my car tonight and send Toyota an invoice? We implore the Utility Commission to deny this immoral rate hike at the expense of the consumers so that shareholder value can be maintained. This rate hike is bad for small business, bad for our economy, and bad for our community. Just say no to this increase. Thank you.
There's a lot of duplication tonight, so consolidate the thoughts of the matter.
Benjamin Brill.
Here to humanize Duke or the people who work there and see not just everybody's point of view. Not as educated as I'd like to be about this, but I would just like to see the betterment of all, and that means the proposed changes. I can't get behind them. I commend the solar move. I see that 130-something million, that's good. But it's skewed, and there's no way that I could believe in these changes. So I would like to be able to invest in my energy company and feel ethical about that. I know a lot of local people who are in extreme financial hardship. And you know, $20 a month is substantial. That's a reality. So I would implore that you reject the proposed. That's all.
Judy Roach. I'm not sure the spelling of this next one is Beth. Angelic or Angesic?
I do.
Spell your last name, please.
Jezek. Jezek. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. Welcome to Western North Carolina. Many years ago, in Finance 101, I learned that if I bought stock in a company, I was gambling that the product or service was good and that the company management would make good decisions in the running of the company. It was my understanding that if management made bad decisions, I might not receive dividends and my investment could be lowered in value or be lost altogether. Yet Duke wants the ratepayers, not the stockholders, to pay for the coal ash cleanup. In the February 16th issue of the Charlotte Observer, Duke reported its 2016 earnings as $2.1 billion. According to the Duke Energy website, they have paid quarterly dividends to shareholders for the past 90 years. At $84 per share, my guess is that few of Duke's ratepayers actually own Duke Energy stock. Regardless, Duke would like its customers to pay an additional $200 per year to cover the cost of the coal ash cleanup. It was also reported in the February 17th Charlotte Observer that it will cost $5 billion to complete the cleanup of the coal ash ponds. I think Duke's $2.1 billion earnings for 2016 would be a nice down payment on that cleanup. Their mismanagement will also result in delays to updating of their service, as well as likely drop the value of the stock and possible end to stockholder dividends for a while. That is the cost of their negligent and unethical activities in not disposing of coal ash properly. The shareholders may have made a bad choice in buying Duke Energy stock, but Duke customers did nothing wrong and should not have to pay for Duke's bad decisions. I implore you to deny the rate increase. Thank you for your time.
Viola Williams.
Who's next on your list?
Joe Dawson is next.
I'm not going to swear, but I will be glad. I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You affirm?
I affirm.
You affirm the testimony about in this case? The whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
All right, then.
I got y'all attention, didn't I? Good. Because when I came in here, I asked one of the persons, do we vote for those guys? And they said, no. You, the county of Bucky County, didn't vote for them. I said, well, how are they our commissioners? And they said, well, the governor appointed them. Is that right? Yeah. Well, if the governor appointed, I said, that means that's their boss. Cooper is their boss. Yes. So Cooper can tell them what to do. No, they're going to make the decision. Oh, you guys make the decision. So I'm going to have to kiss up to y'all. And let me tell you something, my heroes are these guys right here, standing in uniform by that door, these doors. 90% of them I trust with my life. Now I want to trust you guys with my utility bill. Just like you came here to do. Now I'm a very observer. There's one guy over there, keep looking at that clock every other hour, and I feel like because I got a TV program I want to look at. One fellow take notes just like I do in church, and I appreciate you with both eyes. And one would not keep a poker face like I don't know what. But when he did smile, had the most beautiful smile in the world, you got to get a shirt. And this guy over here, he is a proficient listener. And the girl over there can take good notes, so take good notes on what I'm about to tell you. Now, a year ago, I was in a car wreck. Went to visit my relatives in Charlotte. Now, I want you to know 3 years ago, my husband died. I took a $1,000 pay cut. That was a rude awakening because I had the same utility bills. Same bills, but I had to pay what had my income. It sucks. So, when I came home, I realized, my gas, I forgot to pay my gas bill. Just get over a car accident, taking therapy, I realized, I don't have any heat. Because the electricity heats my water. And that was cut off. I had to go back to old school. Some of y'all don't know about old school, but when my dad used to sell wood, coal, and kerosene, we learned how to get wood and cut wood. So I went in the neighborhood, put my purchase down, got in my car, and looked for some logs that somebody had cut down. And praise the Lord, I had a fireplace. And I made a fire in that fireplace because it was 20-some degrees out, no, 18 degrees outside. And I couldn't go anywhere because the utility people said, if you leave the house and you come here and you're not there, we're not going to get you back on. But when I heard that you guys going to give, somebody going to give a 16% hike, and I said, $1,000 pay cut, and my Tylenol costs $18. That's going to be my Tylenol money. I'm a good-looking 71-year-old woman. But listen, I figured out a way we can help get this thing taken care of because I ain't got the money to pay that. I really don't. And just like those guys are my protectors, I realize you are it. So when I look at the clock, I got a TV program I want to look at. I want to get out of here. As soon as I get to talk, I'm getting out of here. I don't care what the rest of the people say. Okay? I'm out of here. So here's my little quickie. Now, thank you, Dave, Jason Walls, for biting the bullet and come up here representing your company. I don't think he's here anymore. He got his paycheck. Now, oh, bless his little heart. He's okay. But now, I heard, this is what I heard. Duke CEO makes millions and millions of money. Why don't we let them pay 10%, 16% of their millions of dollars to help this 71-year-old baby going out that don't have that money? You guys can do that. Y'all are heroes. And guess what? That $48 charge me to cut my gas back on, let them put that towards that challenge. Because that's what the charge me to get cut back on. And I didn't even have the bill money. Now, the late charge that I always pay, why don't you add that to that little job that they want to charge us? You know, you get that anyway. You take my $48 anyway. Just add that over there. Leave my 16% alone that I got to get my Tylenol with. And then, I know, now I looked over there, most of you guys, I guarantee you, your grandparent had to go get some water to bring in the house. At least 1/3 back in the day. And they had to use wood and coal when we thought it was clean. But I guarantee not one of them didn't have their lights on.
Let's wrap it up, Ms. Cookie, please.
Okay, how many more minutes? Okay, one more minute.
Have a minute.
Oh, the minute's gone? Be my protector. No, don't go, but you have a beautiful smile. Remember me. That's what the disciples said to Jesus. Remember me in my pocket because I need to have it.
Yeah. Joe Dawson.
Dawson. Next.
After that will be Wiley Cooper.
Mr. Cooper here. Next.
After that will be Dale Aitken.
Mr. Aiken here.
Terry Watson.
Solemnly promise to testify about in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Carrie Watson.
Corey Watson,
Tell me first.
C-A-R-I. And I am a customer. Due to past and current behaviors, we cannot expect the decision makers at Duke to act in the public interest. But we do expect those who have authority to regulate them as our only protection against the tyranny of monopoly to act strongly in the public interest. To that end, I suggest that Duke be regulated to provide for discounted rates for those who qualify by application and to lower the rates for standard customers. I also suggest that the individuals whose decisions have caused harm to pay compensation for harm done to communities, the environment, and individuals instead of allowing Duke to cause so much harm with impunity. If they are called on to pay for their bad behaviors, it would have an effect on their future behaviors. Thank you.
Ms. Watson.
Sam MacArthur.
Solemnly promise to testify about in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
How do you spell your MacArthur?
M-A-C space capital A-R-T-H-U-R.
Can we have this stage?
Good evening. Your title is Commissioner, but to me you're a human being. Your blood pumps through your body and you're 70% water. I hope it's clean and I hope you're enjoying that glass of water. If I was here in Dropovich, you wouldn't be drinking bottled water. I've seen what you've done to my people in this country. And if you think I'm going to sit here and listen to corporations tell them they're going to do something different, I don't believe you. What appeals to you most is money. That's about greed. But when you make choices, the outcome is determined by the energy of your intentions. Now, China is already buying water from us and has been for a long time. California is mass producing solar panels for India. If you haven't seen The Inconvenient Truth by Mr. Al Gore, I suggest that you take a look at it, because climate change is real. When you say you're going to do something, how long is it going to take you to do it? When can I get a date that's expected to be this clean up? I'd like to have an answer to that. I'm not going to give you $20. I know what poverty is, and I'm 70 years old, single and self-employed. I would rather take that $20 and have myself a fine meal, or help somebody else in my family. Now, I'm an elder with some Oyate, so my fuel is provided for me out of respect for my age. You all must have children and grandchildren. We've told you repeatedly, 7 generations out is what we look at. You've ignored the prophecies of the Hopi, the Lakota, the Mayan, And it's time that you listened. Because the Bible says, know your God and know your water. The Dene, the Navajo, have to walk or go 10 miles to get clean water. Is Michigan's water cleaned up yet? No, I don't think so. So shame on you. Open your hearts and your conscience. Pay attention to your dreams tonight, because your ancestors are knocking on your doors loud and clear. And they will be heard. Trust me, our days are numbered for extinction. We've already lost a good many of our animals, some of our people and our indigenous ones. We just went underground. We're above ground now, and we're speaking with a loud voice. Well, Mene Wachoni, which means water is life, because it's sacred to us. It's our first medicine. We can't live without clean water, and we can't live without air. And both of those things have been compromised by the choices that you have made. I hope you choose differently, because you might not see it, but your kids and your grandchildren will. And I hope you have enough love and compassion for them to make a difference in their lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy Craig.
Ann Craig, I live in Asheville, and yes, I do pay basically to do power. I oppose the rate hike for every reason that was stated here tonight. I'd like to ask the utility commissioners to advise the General Assembly to look at two bills, SB 236 and HB 427, which is called the Efficient and Affordable Energy Rates Bill, that would provide powerful economic incentive for ratepayers to invest in efficiency, rooftop solar, and provide them a means to do so by creating an energy efficiency bank, which would provide low-interest loans. I think you also need to break up Duke Power. You need to break up this regulated monopoly, decentralize the power grid, and adopt the rate restructuring outlined in SB 236 and HB 427. You as our commissioners, your job is to provide the ratepayer with the lowest cost energy while protecting the public and the environment. The time is now for renewables, non-extractive energy production, efficiency, and conservation. Thank you.
Carolyn Anderson.
Thank you, Commissioners, for staying out so late tonight and hanging out with us here in Western North Carolina. We really appreciate your time. So many people have talked about the coal ash. I'm not going to go into that again. We all know that this is just egregious misappropriation of energy. That was a pun. By Duke, and we don't want to pay for that. So I'm going to ask you simply to reject their request for a rate hike. 16% for residential is ridiculous. And It's unconscionable. So I'm going to focus my comments on Duke's egregious and blatant disdain for your rules and for EPA law regarding containment and mitigation of pollution from their facilities across the state, and the desire to impose upon us, the ratepayers, the cost of cleaning up their mess and continuing their fossil fuel legacy of negligence and profit motives. What we know. In 2014, Duke pleaded guilty and was fined $102 million for 9 criminal violations of the Clean Water Act, including but not limited to the dumping of over 39,000 tons of coal ash and 27 million gallons of ash slurry into the Dan River, lining it with thick sludge for 70 miles. In a separate judgment in September of that year by the EPA and Justice Department, Duke was required to pay $5.4 million additional dollars for 5 violations of the Clean Air Act for the air pollution caused by 5 power plants in North Carolina. Just this year, 30 different insurance companies refused to pay for Duke's cleanup costs, claiming that, and this is a quote, "The nation's largest electric company long knew about but did nothing to reduce the threat of potentially toxic pollutants," end quote. The companies jointly claimed that, quote, "because Duke Energy stored its coal ash in unlined pits as part of its normal practices, any property damage was caused intentionally by or at Duke's direction," end quote. These are just 2 examples of Duke's attitude toward pollution, and we have no guarantee that their future plans do not put profit above environmental safety. For example, their current plan, which has been approved, is to build 2 fracked gas plants in Asheville. Gas would be supplied from the Gulf of Mexico or the shale reserves in Pennsylvania and West Virginia, carried here through pipelines and compressed every 70 miles along the way in stations that off-gas not only methane, but toxic chemicals that cause cancer, asthma, and other respiratory diseases. I have a list here of many. I think there's like 30 different health concerns based on those chemicals that are distributed from their compressor stations. They want us to pay for these new power plants. We know there's a better way, and we encourage you, the Utilities Commission, to deny this rate hike and to be loyal to the office you hold and to the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of North Carolina, as is your sworn duty as Commissioner. This includes the authority and responsibility to, according to General Statute 62.2, A, provide fair regulation of public utilities in the interest of the public. B, you all know this, of course, to encourage and promote harmony between public utilities, their users, and the environment. C, diversify the resources. This is the key thing. Diversify the resources used to reliably meet the energy needs of the consumers of the state. D, encourage private investment in renewable energy. And E, provide improved air quality and other benefits to energy consumers and the citizens of the state of North Carolina. I ask you tonight to please pay attention to these, to your duties, to do what you're responsible for, and to protect the people of North Carolina by denying all dollars asked for by you. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson, did you want to submit that list of compressor chemicals?
I have copies of my desk.
You can bring them to this table here in front of you. Richard Fireman.
Put it on the website.
Solemnly swear that the testimony about to give this case is the truth, the whole truth.
Yes, I do. My name is Richard Fireman. I'm not a Duke customer. I just took an oath to tell the truth. And I know that the commissioners took an oath, and the public staff took an oath. when they took their positions on the commission and the public staff to support the Constitution of North Carolina and the United States. This Constitution explicitly states all government of right originates from the people, is founded on their will only, and is instituted solely for the good of the whole, and not only to us, but to our posterity. The Constitution to which you swore to support is charged to ensure fair regulation of the public utilities in the interest of the public, and a well-planned and coordinated energy system that is needed for the protection of the public health and safety and for the promotion of the general welfare. Excuse me, I'm not trying. Go to the whole, public interest. Please. Go to the whole, public interest and general welfare are the goals of your mandate as commissioners, and not to bend to corporate interest and welfare. So to be clear, we have two parties here today. Duke Energy, a for-profit, shareholder-owned public utility whose sole fiscal duty is to increase shareholder value, and the public, we, the people, and our posterity, who are represented by you, the commissioners, and the staff. The lesson of the string of hurricanes that have ravaged the Caribbean islands and the southern U.S. in the past month is that the old least cost decision process is out of touch with the real world. And we better pay attention to risk-based analysis of all economic decisions related to electricity generation we now make. Risk-based analysis, not least cost analysis. The scientists tell us that there is a very high risk. That means over 95% that we will have more extreme weather, storms, droughts in the future. For North Carolina, that translates into about 3 to 6 levels of sea level rise by the end of the century, with the loss of 2,000 square miles of coastal property in 13 coastal counties. The loss of productive farmland, forests, coastal fisheries due to warming water. Hundreds of billions of dollars in economic losses to our state if Duke continues to pollute our atmosphere with natural gas. The choice is clear. High risk and high cost to the public that entails no risk and no cost and no responsible for Duke Energy. Or a low risk, lower cost system that the commission, along with the public staff, any independent experts that they wish to enlist in Duke Energy to develop a plan for North Carolina. As the sea rises and the storms roll through our communities, it will be we the people who pay the price of property loss, public health costs, and infrastructure loss, while Duke gets away with profiteering from the economic and social catastrophe it caused by ignoring the risks associated with natural gas. There is another choice, a clean path by 2025, and I'll give you a copy. It's lower cost, lower risk, more resilience to the electric grid, and clearly is in the public interest. It protects the public welfare and promotes harmony between the public and the environment. The Commission should deny the rate increase Duke is applying for and develop a risk-based cost-benefit plan for a clean path forward. We need a least risk, no regrets policy. Least risk, no regrets. Thank you. And there's two other things, the evidence about the statements I made about damages to North Carolina. And 2 phase sheets produced by Duke Nichols School of Environment on least risk planning for electric utilities.
We will identify those discrepancies and add them to the record. Sandra Roundtree.
My name is Sandra Roundtree. It's R-O-U-N-T-R-E-E. There's no D in my name. I wear two hats tonight. I work as a volunteer as an advocate for AARP and the commission. They already know, but the state, the North Carolina state AARP is totally against this rate increase for obvious reasons as to how it would affect the population that we serve and advocate for, those that are 50 and older. I also volunteer at the Swananoa Valley Christian Ministry. I do data entry there, and I'm also a receptionist. I'm speaking for Cheryl Wilson, who is our director there, to give you some statistics about how we help and have to help people with their electric bill. In the first 3 quarters of this year, our ministry alone, which covers from the VA hospital through Black Mountain, have spent $75,169 helping families pay for their electric bill. That's 377 households with a total of 972 members that have come to us asking to keep their electricity on or pay for their bills because they have other expenses. These are seniors, which amount to 25% of the people that have asked for help. This also has to do with those that are disabled, those that are living in Social Security. It is also the working poor and unemployed that come to us for that help. And we are just one of many agencies in Montgomery County that's a tremendous amount of money to put out in 3 quarters of a year to help people who cannot pay or not able to pay their electrical bill, either for the air conditioning because of their health concerns or because of their heating concerns, just to keep the heat on during the year. So both for the AARP and for the Christian ministry, I ask the commission to deny the rate increase to Duke Energy.
Carol Stangler.
Yes.
Spell your last name for us, please, Ms. Stanley.
My last name is Stangler. So, my name is Carol Stangler, and I am afflicted with a spiritual disease I call earth grief. The devastated state of the earth, the irreversible ecological damage that has been done and continues to be done, hurts, pains, and leaves me despondent. Not just a little, but very, very deep into my bones, into the core of my psyche. The personal is planetary, the planetary is personal. Global warming, nuclear weapons, radiation and waste, dying species, fracking, pesticides, oil spills, and more. The great web of ecological dysfunction affects me and many of us on a conscious and unconscious level, leaving us in a perpetual state of trauma, a collective spirit of powerlessness and despair. Earth grief. We are here to focus on one public insult to the earth, coal ash ponds. 10 across North Carolina, created and used by one of the largest and wealthiest utilities in the world, Duke Energy Partners, which I will refer to simply as Duke Power Company. One of the cardinal rules of ecology is that everything has to go somewhere, and that includes waste. But where was the moral and social consciousness of the Duke Power Company when it used our ratepayer money to hire engineers and contractors and said, sure, go ahead, dig a big hole next to the river, upstream from public drinking water intakes, and then dump millions of tons of fly ash into it. Fill it with water and let it sit indefinitely. So what? So that the poisons from the unlined pits will leach into the soil and work their way into groundwater used for drinking water wells? Knowing that the earthen dams in the pond will eventually erode, causing the coal ash pollutants of arsenic, mercury, lead, and chromium to inundate acres of homeland, farmland, and forest. And here's where the pain morphs into anger. Earth Day wasn't created yesterday. Duke Power and their engineers knew by common sense that coal ash ponds are dangerous and deadly. Yet Duke's greed for quick and high profits, their ecological disassociation and denial of polluting consequences overrode the Earth's health and integrity and has kept its toxic ponds topped off year after year after year. Earth grief, powerlessness, a deep despair of the spirit, knowing that our Earth is being treated as just a dumping ground. And now, to add insult to injury, Duke Power, this massive, monopolistic public utility, is asking us, the ratepayers, to foot the bill for environmental remediation. But where does the responsibility really lie? From our monthly payments, Duke Power has spent millions of dollars to create and keep these toxic messes going. CEOs and executives have been paid millions of dollars annually, and stockholders have been paid a guaranteed high rate of return. And we, the masses, the ratepayers, are being required to give Duke a huge increase on our utility usage to cover Duke's blatantly conscious, ecologically destructive decisions. This is beyond adding insult to injury. Unfortunately, no amount of money can really undo the damage to our land and water here in North Carolina. The earth weeps, and so do I. But here and now, in this proceeding, we ask you, our public utility commissioners, can you, in your right consciousness, let Duke Power off the hook and make us, the little guys, pay the price for their plunder? In right consciousness, will you, our public utility officers, demand that Duke be held accountable and squarely accept its full responsibility for the ecological degradation it has perpetrated, and restore the earth as much as possible back to its original state? As mothers throughout history have scolded, you make the mess, you clean it up. We ask you to rule that the Duke Power Company public utility use their wealth, not our dollars, to fix the ecological mess they have made.
Jeffrey Seacrest.
I do.
Please, sir.
Secrist, Seacrest. I would like to state that I'm against the rate hike, and my discussion or comment revolves around the avoided cost of rate and how it relates to the rate that the ratepayers are paying. As the commission knows, the avoided cost is essentially the marginal cost for a public utility to produce one or more unit of power. In a regulated state like North Carolina, the utility is required to pay qualifying facilities the avoided cost for the power that is produced. A qualifying facility is an electric generation facility whose primary energy source is renewable sources, such as solar or wind. So in summary, the avoided cost is the price of power that Duke is required to pay for renewable energy for people who build renewable energy projects. This is how renewable energy projects get financed and built in our state, all based on the avoided cost of electricity. Over the past several years, Duke has lobbied over and over again to lower the avoided cost, effectively discouraging renewable energy development in our state. So my rhetorical question for the commission tonight is, how can Duke claim a lower avoided cost, which basically states that it's getting cheaper and cheaper to produce electricity, but then turn around to the ratepayers and ask for a rate increase, basically saying it costs more to produce electricity now? Which is it? Is it getting cheaper to produce electricity, or is it getting more expensive? It doesn't take a lot of thinking to realize that Duke is misleading either the renewable energy developers in the state or the ratepayers. That's all.
Pamela O'Connor. And I'm not sure of this, it looks like Diana DeLupo.
Mr. Lupo here. Next.
Gabrielle White.
Here. Come
After that will be Carl Avedesa.
Left hand Bible, please. Psalm 1, that this case with the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Hey, Brian.
Give your name to the.
Gabrielle White. I live in Asheville. Unfortunately, I'm a new customer. I'm working on getting solar panels on my house. I also don't use a lot of electricity. And I'm a permaculturist. I wanted to ask on behalf of myself and my friends, they had a question if any of the commissioners own stock in Duke. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask you a question, but.
You're not supposed to, but we can by state law. We cannot own it.
Okay, thanks. Just wanted to know if there was a conflict of interest there, so thank you for answering that. I wanted to state that I believe this rate hike is ridiculous. To force us to pay for Duke's coal ash, more methane, frac gas, climate change inducing plants, and a future that looks like having an Atlantic Coast pipeline that Duke seems to be in favor of. I'm a veteran. I served in Iraq. Iraq was a war on oil. And now I'm continuing to fight in this climate injustice here tonight, speaking to you, taking time away from my community, which I often help engage in and helping. But now it's again trying to fight another war on climate injustice. When I was in the Air Force, the leaders were telling us, when I was an officer, and we would have brigadier generals would stand in front of us and tell us that climate change is the biggest threat. That's what we needed to be preparing for. This is 2008. It's now 2017. I'm 33 years old. I'm sorry that you might think that I'm taking up your time right now. I'm saying things that other folks have said, or that might seem evident, readily evident. But the weight that is held behind my
my words and the weight that is behind what Duke is doing as an entity is entirely unethical. And somehow they've gotten around laws where, somehow they've gotten around laws as a monopoly, and because of the amount of money that they have, where people have died because of the coal ash, people have cancer because of the coal ash. People will die because of climate change. People have died because of climate change. I'm not having children because of climate change, because of entities like Duke, monopolies like Duke, that decides to continue to take our money to create methane plants, frack gas plants, climate change inducing plants that take away the lives of people on this planet. I heard that the CEO made $13+ million in profits and wanted to ask utilities if there was any sort of freeze on bonuses, any sort of money that came out of the pockets from those people. I researched it, I couldn't find any sort of bonus freeze or any other type of retribution for the people that made these egregious decisions. What's happened is absolutely disgusting. This is unethical and inhumane. And somehow Duke has gotten around the water laws, the protected rights, the laws that have been put into place so that things like this wouldn't happen. As of a few weeks ago, with the arrival of Hurricane Irma, I now understand that I have what is called climate eco-anxiety. I had a 4-hour episode in which I couldn't speak. I was shaking uncontrollably. I thought I was having a stroke or a seizure. I called my brother, I called my loved ones, and I told them that I loved them, because I didn't think I had any time left. And every day I tell people that I love them because I don't think there's any time left, because of the amount of grief that I have over what is happening to our planet. And Duke could do so much to change that. The Utilities Commission could do so much to change that if you stepped up and spoke from your heart and said what you believe and what you think and what we're telling you to know to be true. Duke could be a leader. It's so easy. It's so big. You have so much money. Duke has so much money. They have so much influence and power. The ability that they have to put solar on rooftops, to create and incentivize competition, to create and incentivize there being decentralized solar panels, wind, geothermal, microhydro. Something's stopping it, and I don't know what the beast is, but I imagine that you do. And I ask you as the Utility Commission to go find out what that beast is.
Thomas Mello, Ms. White.
Is that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Carl Avedesa.
Next.
Tevye Davis.
Next.
Mark Ritzentaylor.
Next.
Susanna Tevye Davis. Renee Mazurek.
Is there anybody else out there who wants to testify tonight? You already testified, sir, don't you?
He testified on behalf of the young lady. He has his own testimony. Remember the pictures in the cancer?
Go through your list. There are 3 or 4 people back there who want to testify. Go through your list.
I think we're mostly in people who are not customers, but we got a few customers left. Beatrice Nathan.
Nathan here. Next.
Elizabeth Laubach. Stephen Norris.
Now,
I'm sorry. I should have eyes in the back of my head.
Yes. Spell your last name, please, ma'am.
That's Laubach. Thanks for being here with us all tonight. I am here because I oppose this rate hike, like everyone else who has spoken tonight. It perpetuates a downward spiral into humanity's demise, as we've heard. These main points that I'd like to state have been stated, but I believe that it is important for you commissioners to hear this again and again so that it is within your heart just as much as it is within your mind. By releasing responsibility from Duke Energy for the mistakes that they made in their long-term planning for what to do with coal once it's burned, we are releasing the responsibility of how we can go forth in living in this world responsibly. This rate hike will lock in climate change causing dirty fossil fuel energy infrastructure. Now, we saw how last week Governor Roy Cooper delayed decision-making on the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. We saw how a few weeks ago West Virginia denied their approval of the Mountain Valley Pipeline. States are thinking differently about this, and I think it's important that we take that into our decisions when we're planning the finances for this kind of infrastructure, taking into account the environmental impacts of this kind of infrastructure. Furthermore, Duke Energy is asking the people who are directly harmed by these things, by the coal ash pollution, by the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, the folks who have poisoned wells, the folks whose land is under threat of eminent domain. Duke Energy is asking these people to pay for these harms. I also want to speak for the Blue Ridge Mountains. I want to speak for the entities that can't get up here behind the microphone, take an oath, and speak. As you may know, the Blue Ridge Mountains hold many endemic species that cannot be found anywhere else in the world. The Atlantic Coast Pipeline will cross the Blue Ridge Mountains, leaving up at least 150-foot wide swath of destruction in its wake. This will affect from the salamanders to the snails to the trout that so many folks go to fish. And of course, we see how this pipeline is part of this larger plan to lock this region into dirty fossil fuel energy, which, as we've heard about the effects of climate change, how that harms not just our lives, but the lives of all of the animals and plant species that call this region home, that people come to this region for. I do not support that. I do not support fracked gas. It is not natural gas. Fracked gas. We see how, we know how it is leaked through transport and methane is released into the atmosphere. This has been espoused upon tonight, and I will not repeat it. But I will say that this does not represent a clean path toward the future. And that is not the kind of path that I want to live, that I want to live in, that I want to walk. The Atlantic Coast Pipeline represents a downward spiral into this new term that was also brought to our attention tonight, predatory delay. I also want to see a more responsible plan for cleaning up coal ash. I do not support cap in place that is being directed by Duke Energy. And I, as a ratepayer, do not want to see my money go towards that kind of plan. Coal ash has been studied to have radioactivity, as well as all of these other chemicals, these many heavy metals. I want to see that we make moves toward classifying coal ash as toxic waste that it is and treated like nuclear waste, and that we are not making plans to pay for it to just be covered up. And also,
Time's up, we can't do that. Somebody else is going to do that. That's
thank you for listening.
Stephen Norris.
Can I sit standing this way?
Next week, we're confirming this morning.
Either way.
Channel the Bible, please, and raise your right hand. Solemnly swear the testimony about to give in this case is the truth and whole truth and nothing but the truth. Stand up and make your statement.
My name is Dr. Stephen Norris. I was not prepared to talk tonight, but I helped with a banner hang, as some of you saw across the street tonight, which is a kind of edgy confrontation with public authority. And I risked arrest, I risked some safety with two other younger men than I am. And I did that because I think it is so important right now that we make the point as powerfully as we can that the course that we are on as a society, the course that our energy systems are taking is not working, and it is dangerous to the planet. I am a 75-year-old great-grandfather. I have no business climbing around on an 80-foot roof, but I must do it because the lives of my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and my children are at stake. And I hope that you, the commissioners, will understand this. I assume, as somebody said earlier, that most of you, all of you are parents, that all of you probably, many of you, not all of you maybe, are grandparents. I want my grandchild, who is, one of my grandchildren is 34, another grandchild is 2. I want Evie, my 2-year-old grandchild, her to grow up in a world as beautiful as the world I got to grow up in. And believe me, I am scared that that is not going to be available to her. Now, what does this have to do with what we're doing tonight? What it has, and I think people have made it pretty clear, so I don't need to go into much detail. But this rate hike is about, as people have said, the destruction of the planet, the destruction of the world that would potentially can support my great-granddaughter, but will not if we go on with this kind of policy. This right is about dirty energy. It's about, as we know, paying for Duke's past dirty energy. It's about paying for its present dirty energy, and it's paying for its future dirty energy in the form of frack gas power plants and in the form of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline and other frack gas infrastructure. That is unacceptable. We cannot do it. It is wrong, it is dangerous, it is fiscally unsound too, as some people have pointed out. Let's go somewhere else, and you have the chance to make that happen. One thing that's very clear to me, listening to this testimony tonight, if we live in a democracy, and some of us doubt that we still live in a democracy, the testimony tonight here has been unanimous, as you can tell, in opposition to this rate hike. For various reasons, and there are many reasons, of course, but nobody has spoken in favor except that Jason Wallace made a statement on behalf of Duke. But other than that, there's been nobody who has hinted that this is a good thing. Where is it? And yet, I've been at hearings very similar to this, where everybody has testified in that way, and the Utilities Commission, FERC in Washington, and I've been in FERC too, making speeches like this, does exactly the opposite that the people are saying. Well, the people are speaking. The people are speaking loud and clear. There is no better way for us to have made clear than we did tonight that the people of North Carolina, or at least the people of Asheville, are unanimously opposed to this kind of this kind of rate hike that Duke has proposed. So I propose deny the rate hikes, revoke Duke's corporate charter, break up Duke, and listen to the people. Thank you very much. Thank you all. We trust that you will do the right thing.
Audrey Yatras.
I'm going to sit down.
Raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear that the testimony about the administration will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Spell your last name.
YMTRAS.
See your statement.
Hello, my name is Audrey Yatras, and I live in Arden by Lake Julian. And I am not going to go through some of the things that were stated earlier regarding some of the more scientific aspects of this whole situation. Let's just call it a situation for the sake of brevity. One of the things that I just want to underscore in terms of my own personal angst that I feel right now is that I feel as though Duke, as a corporation, a large corporation, is that they need to take personal responsibility for their action and the fact that it is their wrongdoing that has ended up with with this disaster, and that it is wrong for them to ask for me as well as all of these others to pay for this mistake. And I don't feel as though it is fair for us to pay for their wrongdoing when the company is doing so well. And I think that America is getting into the mode of feeling that it is the bigger responsibility of corporations to make sure that shareholders end up having their shares always going up, and that's their biggest responsibility. They have a responsibility to the American public and not to the shareholders. And I think that the CEO, the fact that she makes $13.8 million, she made that massive mistake, and then she got a bonus, and she keeps doing well every single year. She keeps getting a raise, and then there was the mistake of the CEO who was there for one day, and his pay was $44 million for 1 day's worth of work. And I think that that was a pretty big mistake. I think. I don't know, maybe it's not, but for $44 million for 1 day, that could pay for an awful lot. I think that could make it so that none of us had to have an increase at all. And I think that that needs to be something that needs to be vocalized, and I think that Duke needs to do something other than ask for us in North Carolina to pay for the mistakes that they have made, and they need to owe up on it, owe up to the mistakes that they have done. And the fact that Flint, Michigan is not that different than what we could become, because that was an oversight of their public oversight, and then for us to not have been allowed here, the doors closed at the courthouse at 7 o'clock, and most of the people that were outside, there was a large crowd of people outside who could not get in tonight. And I don't know if anyone here was aware of that, but we're going over, and I know that there were a lot of people who wanted to get in here, but I think that Duke doesn't want to hear a lot of the outcry from how outraged people in Asheville are about this rate increase. And I think that I live close to the airport, and I think that the fact that there is coal ash buried in the ground and that people have no idea how that is going to work out 10 years from now or 20 years from now. There is no idea what will happen. And I just think that people just need to be aware of that. Thank you.
Xavier Boatwright, who spoke earlier on behalf of someone else, but would like to make his own statement. After that, we've got, I believe, 3 people who are not new customers.
Commissioners, I apologize for any duplication that I may mention. I gave up my space to speak for a friend who got sick earlier, but I tried to remove as much as I could that I felt was heavily emphasized already. Duke Energy has been burning coal for nearly a century in the state of North Carolina. That's before most, if not all of us, were alive. The first power plant went commercial in 1926. It was the Buck Steam Station named after Jim Buchanan, one of the company's founders. When Duke Energy was held partially accountable for coal ash contamination of public waters and private wells, as well as millions of tons of unlined coal ash pits, the utility used every possible approach, including unjustified groundwater modeling, to escape liability. The company's own insurers have refused to pay for coal ash cleanup, saying the company knowingly contaminated groundwater at its coal ash sites. Neighbors of Duke Energy's coal ash dumps live, like the folks here in Arden and across the state, have had to rely on bottled water, which is provided by the company for more than 2 years. Their property values, well water quality, and lifestyles have suffered severely as a result of Duke Energy's decision to dump coal ash in unlined pits. These impacted residents and other ratepayers must not foot the bill for Duke Energy's own legacy of coal ash negligence. The North Carolina Utilities Commission should reject Duke Energy Progress's request to recover $195 million per year from the ratepayers of North Carolina to clean up coal ash, especially given that Duke Energy leadership has stated that this is the first of multiple rate hikes through 2021. Lastly, but definitely not the least, the construction of new gas frac plants is the largest portion of the Duke Energy rate hike at $416 million per year, and almost half of that amount is to cover costs associated with the combined cycle plant gas units here in Arden. Duke Energy is the second largest partner in the 600-mile gas pipeline that is proposed in the eastern portion of the state. Thankfully, a decision on the 401 water quality certification for this unneeded, unjustified gas infrastructure project has been pushed back by the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality for further review. The construction of gas plants has been used to justify the 600-mile gas infrastructure pipeline. An energy future dominated by gas, as promised by Duke Energy, will hold NC ratepayers hostage to paying for gas power plants and pipelines that are not even needed. Duke Energy has actually adjusted electric demand downward in its most recent integrated resource plan, and I have that source provided, I'll turn that in. Recent analysis from the Energy Information Administration suggests that demand for natural gas for power generation will remain at or below 2015 levels until 2034. And I'll also provide that. As the cost of renewables fall, pipelines and other gas infrastructure will quickly become useless, yet we, the ratepayers, will still have to pay Duke back for the money they invested, plus a hefty rate of return. Furthermore, gas infrastructure is known to leak massive amounts of methane, which is more than 80 times more powerful than greenhouse gas, such as carbon dioxide. These are the same greenhouse gases that can contribute to an increase in extreme climate events such as Hurricane Matthew, which have caused damages in eastern North Carolina, for which Duke Energy has also asked its ratepayers to pay $30 million per year. I strongly urge the North Carolina Utilities Commission to reject the Duke Energy Progress Rate Hike request for ratepayers to pay for damages from coal ash negligence and risky unneeded gas infrastructure. I would like to thank the Utilities Commission for having these public comment hearings across the state and allowing ratepayers an opportunity to weigh in. I also would like to state, I didn't get to say I was able to vote right after the 42 Oakhurst Road, Arden, North Carolina, and I am a Duke Energy Progress ratepayer. Thank you.
Next is Patrick Taylor, the mayor of Highlands, North Carolina.
I do. I know. Also contact with you. Go right ahead.
Yes. I want to thank the commissioners for this opportunity to talk with you tonight. It was a long evening. My name is Patrick Taylor. I am the mayor of Highlands, North Carolina. Highlands has operated an electrical utility that serves over 3,000 customers since 1929. Our electric utility is probably the oldest municipal system in Western Carolina. Our main business in town is retail. We are a seasonal town that swells in population in the summer and declines in the winter months to about under 1,000 people, about 980 people. Our customer base consists of local and seasonal residents and small businesses. Electrical costs are critical factors to our economy. Highlands is a wholesale power customer of Duke Energy of the Carolinas. I'm appearing before you tonight to talk about coal ash. We believe the precedents for Duke's request to recover coal ash costs will be set in this Duke Energy Progress case. To be specific, we believe that this commission decides in the progress rate case will flow over into the Duke Energy Carolinas rate case and then on to our wholesale bills from Duke.
Mr. Taylor, I want you to be quick about this. We've already had a motion about that. You're
Okay,
also
sure.
participating in this case.
All
so
right.
be quick about it.
Yes, sir. We have calculated that our coal ash exposure will be anywhere from $900,000 to $1 million. You may imagine that this will be a real impact on our economy and it'll have a ripple effect on our consumers. Another observation that we've made is that these estimates seem not to be in line with the estimates of other utilities in other states that are facing similar coal ash cleanup initiatives. This commission is well aware of the Dan River coal ash spill, and I don't want to get into any particulars about that tonight. But I do want to remind you that in the press release from the Justice Department, the Attorney General's, for example, John C. Cruden, actually indicated that this was a massive coal ash spill into the North Carolina's Dan River, and it was a crime that was a result of repeated failures of Duke Energy subsidiaries to exercise controls over coal ash facilities. This has been a breach of the public trust noted by the Attorney General's press release. And here Duke management is asking this commission to force consumers to pay for all the coal ash cleanups.
It's not a bad record. Let's wrap it up, Mr. Taylor.
Okay. I'm here tonight to ask you to remember the words of the Attorney General. I'm asking you not to permit Duke management to violate the public trust again by forcing the consumers to pay for their criminal actions. Finally, I speak on behalf of our town board that we think this is unfair for ratepayers of Duke to solely bear the cleanup costs. The leadership of Duke Energy made some very poor management decisions in this matter. We urge your commission to require Duke Energy stockholders to share in absorbing these forthcoming costs. Thank you very much.
Kat Houghton or Houghton, who appears to be a customer of French Fry Electric.
Have your name and please spell your last name.
Catherine Houghton, H-O-U-G-H-T.
Right here.
I'm not going to read you what I wrote because it's already been covered. But the piece that I think hasn't been covered strongly is the fact that we have a democracy problem here. And that if you were to approve this rate hike by this request by Duke shareholders, you could be in violation of our state constitution and of the rules, the governing laws of the agency which you respond to abide by. There is nothing in this that is for the interest of the people. There is nothing in this that is for the good of the whole. There's nothing in this that is, let me just make sure I get the language right, is to encourage and promote the harmony between public utilities, their users, and the environment. That's what we just want to uphold. There's nothing in here that's considered harmonious. Duke has a plan to rope us into fossil fuels for the next 30, 40 years, and every single other person wants renewable energy. There's no harmony there. Fracking gas out of the ground and removing our mountains to get coal is not in harmony with our environment. So if you approve this, you're in violation of your own oath and of our Constitution. We're not acting as a government for the people and by the people. All government of right originates from the people, is founded upon their will only, and is instituted solely for the good of the people. That's the North American Declaration of Rights. This is a violation of our rights. Our ancestors fought hard and died brutally to give us these liberties. They shed blood into the land on which we're sitting today, which was already soaked with the blood of countless indigenous people, and the people from Africa that we brought here to turn into profit. We have an obligation to all those people who died and fought for this country so that we can all live here. We have an obligation to protect this land from destruction, from flooding, from forest fires, from hurricanes, from soaring temperatures that are already dangerously pushing the limits of what the human body can tolerate. That's what this is going to come to. We're all going to be crowded on a little piece of land somewhere, getting too hot, and eventually our bodies are going to give up. So I ask you to do your job, that which you just wanted to do, which is to protect us, to be our voice, the voice of the people, and stop prioritizing the rights of a corporation, stop prioritizing their profits over the welfare and the health and the survival of our species.
Anybody else?
Robert Burns Jr.
Burns Jr. Anybody else?
That's all that I have on the sign-up sheets. Is there anyone else here who would care to speak tonight?
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a long night. Appreciate your testimony. We'll take it into consideration and hopefully later in November, hear lots of testimony.
And you did that. That's amazing.